WGRS Talk is made possible by the Anchor app. If you've never heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. It's absolutely free and allows you to make your own podcast on your phone or on your computer. Anchor will also distribute your podcast on platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can make money from your podcast as well without a minimum membership. It's all you need to make a podcast in one place. So, go and download your Anchor app for free, or you can go to anchor.fm to get started today.
You're listening to the Wolf's Den Radio Show. Talk.
Hey, brothers and sisters, welcome to another episode of WGRS Talk, the Wolf's Den Radio Show Talk, and this is your host and your brother from another mother, spreading some cosmic love wherever I can, Wolf Hemora, here with you. And I want to thank you for joining me once again for another great episode of this humble podcast of mine. It is episode 28 and the third episode of season 2. And if you hear any background noise, I apologize about that. I'm just parked here in our local, how would I say this? Recreation center slash YMCA city thing. They have a soccer field, they have a baseball field, they got a gym. I don't know what you call that. I don't know, community center. Anyway, I'm parked here. I am about to go on a 3-mile walk, which I try to do as much as I can, almost every day. If I'm not doing anything after work, I take my walks, and it's helped me a lot. And I do want to recommend that you get some exercise yourselves. If you're bored at home, even just 30 minutes of walking around the block, man, that's going to help you out. And I just wanted to also, with that, because we are still in a pandemic, and with the Delta variant going around, it is very important to boost your immune system. To not just take the vaccine. Of course, take the vaccine. Do not be afraid to take it, and no, your balls will not grow swollen like the cousin's friend of the friend of Nicki Minaj's cousin. I don't know if you've heard that piece of news, but it's very ridiculous that this guy's balls got swollen apparently because of the vaccine. Well, we'll never know. And so anyway, yes, boost your immune system. Vitamin D. That's why go out for a walk, get some sun. Vitamin D supplements, zinc, vitamin C, of course, and if you're into teas, green tea will always help, and chamomile tea also boosts your immune system. So do boost your immune system, even though you have gotten the vaccine, and it's just for your overall health, and that and so you don't get COVID, and hopefully we don't get this fucking Delta variant going around. And anyway, keep safe out there. Wear a mask in crowded places. I've been watching concerts. The last concert I saw was Kiss in Irvine, and it was a great experience. It was an outdoor show, and Kiss put on a really awesome show. And it's the first time I ever saw them, and it was great. But it got pretty hairy at the end. Because suddenly thunder and lightning was heard and seen on the horizon, from the outdoor venue, and you could hear it. And it's like everyone's like, "What the hell, thunder?" It doesn't rain in our area a lot at all. If it's a special occasion when it rains over here in Southern California, but it was a freak thunderstorm, complete with thunder and lightning, and it started to form right after Gene Simmons did his solo and his demon presentation. His kabuki theater solo, and they sang "God of Thunder," and suddenly this fucking thunderstorm forms, and they had to cut the concert a little short. No more encore. They just went straight to the last song, which is "Rock and Roll All Night," and it just started to fucking pour. And I'm telling you, man, the rain here in Southern California is not rain like in a tropical area. But this thunderstorm, it had raindrops bigger than raindrops in the Philippines. So it was such a freaky thing to happen at the Kiss show, and it didn't happen anywhere else. It was only there. So anyway, that was my adventure, my last show. Like I said, wearing masks. We would go and wear masks as the crowd would walk from the parking lot into the venue. Security checks and all of that, ticket and showing your ticket and going inside. Where I wore my mask going in there, just because you're walking in a crowd, and you don't really want to be, a carrier, get it from someone, and even though I'm vaccinated, I might pass it on to someone else. So when I'm in a crowded place and a lot of people are walking, huffing and puffing, it's best to wear a mask. But anyway, moving on. Episode 27, and it's going to be a film director. The first interview of WDRS Talk with a film director, I think, yeah. And his name is Raymond Red. He's a Filipino independent filmmaker, actually. And he's done a lot of great work, a lot of underground films. And there was one film that I actually saw here in the States when it came out. I think it was 2004 or 2005. And I saw his film called Himpapawid. And I saw it in a theater, in a local theater here. And I was so proud. I was with my sister, and we were like, "Yeah, we're watching a Filipino movie in the States, and it's so cool." And I know the director. I know Raymond Red because we had the opportunity to work together back in the Wolfgang days, and he directed the music video of Meckam, which is on the last Wolfgang album, or the fifth Wolfgang album, Black Mantra. So you can check that out on YouTube. Meckam, Meckam by Wolfgang. Watch the video. It's a cool video with a lot of miniature work, and that's Raymond Red directing that. And we actually talk about that, the production of that music video, and a lot of stuff as well. We talk about movies. And we talk about a lot about Citizen Kane, arguably the best movie ever made, and I never knew the reason why people say that, and he explained it to me, and it makes perfect sense. And maybe not the best movie, but definitely up there, Citizen Kane. So anyway, yeah, and so I hope you enjoy this one. And before I play you the interview, I just want to let you know about some business. Thank you for your support. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. Subscriptions always matter, as you know, with algorithms on the internet. And if you like the episode, please like the episode. If you're listening on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, please follow the podcast profile. And yeah, just give it a follow, and also on Anchor.fm, where that is the home base of WGRS Talk and a lot of podcasts. You can also show your support by donating some money on that website. Just look for the support button. Go to the WDRS Talk profile on Anchor.fm. And there is a support button that you can press, and you can send me some finances for to keep the equipment up there, And if I do need new equipment for the production of the show, then I have funds to get it from. And there are a couple of people who are monthly subscribers and monthly donors, and I want to thank you very much for your support, for your actual monetary support. It means a lot. So thank you. And lastly, please support my new band, my new project, my new musical project called The Melodies. These is spelled Dees, Dees, and we are on Facebook and Instagram. On Instagram, we are Melodies at Melodies 2019. On Facebook, we are The Melodies. And give us a follow. We have a lot of content over there. We are working on a couple of projects, a couple of special projects with a couple of very special people who are helping us out. So stay tuned for that. There is a lot of music coming. A lot of musical content is coming from The Melodies. So I want to thank you guys for your support so far. And if you're not following us yet, hey man, head over to Instagram and Facebook. Give us a follow. All right, here we go. Episode 27, the third episode of Season 2 of WDRS Talk. This is your host, Wolf Hemara, and I am talking to director Raymond Red. Enjoy. All right, Mr. Raymond Red, thank you very much for joining me. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Surviving.
Have you been vaccinated?
Yeah, well, I'm getting my second jab this week.
Nice. How does it feel, man? Because I'm already fully vaccinated, thankfully.
I really don't know. The first jab, I just was sleepy the whole day, but no other
okay.
side
So that was the
effects.
effect. That was the effect for you.
It was okay. So
No, but I mean, how does it
I'm doing
feel?
this week.
I mean, how does it feel after like more than a year? For like 15 months, and finally there's like light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if we can already describe it as seeing light. I mean, for the
Mhm.
Philippines, it can be quite sad to think, like we really envy the U.S. So I hear that in the U.S. some cities or states are anywhere from 70 to 90% vaccinated. I mean,
Yeah,
in
those are
terms of numbers,
those would be the more liberal states.
right. I
I mean,
can
because that's the
understand.
problem. That's the big problem that happened here
Mm,
was that when COVID happened, of course, the last president of the U.S. he just he didn't take care of anything. He politicized it, which is the worst thing that he could have done. So until now, there is that residue of it. If you talk about COVID and if you talk about masks, it's still political to some people. To most people, it's like it was a disease. We have to get a vaccine to be protected from it. Let's do that. But there's some people who are on both sides who are very extreme, you know, and so the more conservative states have lower like vaccination rates. In fact, today or yesterday, Joe Biden was like he mentioned that he wants to speed it up some more because there's a variant that's coming out or
right.
it's already going around. So the people who aren't vaccinated and who have probably already decided that I don't want to wear a mask to begin with, so I'm never going to wear a mask now because my state already lifted the mask mandate, and they're not vaccinated. So this new variant is going to get them because they're not protected. Whereas, sorry for the long cuento, but it's really interesting what's happening. And then on the other side of the coin, so they're at risk because they're not vaccinated, no. But on the other side of the coin, just today, this heavy metal guitarist, Matt Heafy, of this band called Trivium, he got COVID. He was positive, but he was fully vaccinated already. He was positive, and I think his brother or his father, or no, or someone he knew. I'm not sure their relationship, but that person wasn't vaccinated and he got COVID too, and he was messed up. But Matt Heafy, the guitarist, he was like, he described it. It was just like I had a cold, you know, like he said, a tour cold. So I guess when they're on tour and you get sick with a cold, like that, a couple of days, and then he was fine. So that means he was vaccinated, and he was, it wasn't as bad as the person who wasn't vaccinated. So
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same really all over the world. And it's worse for the Philippines. I mean, they're saying we can never really reach true herd immunity, but it's still the best thing to do, to get as many people vaccinated. And you know, if I'm right, the last report I read, the Philippines is only somewhere around 5% of
oh my
the
gosh,
population. That's terrible. I mean,
oh my gosh,
it's the same situation where the government is bragging about their actions and their programs for responding to the crisis
yeah.
of the pandemic since last year, and they were actually late in doing so, and we're only 5%. So that even that 5% will be useless because the new variants may come out. So
Yeah, they're already here,
it's really sad. But whoever is willing to have a vaccine, everybody's trying to promote it and convince everyone else. So
I don't understand the reason why they don't want to get it. Is that what's happening in the Philippines? People don't want to get it.
I, well, that's one thing. I mean, I don't know the numbers. I wouldn't
Right,
know
right.
how
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
many people are thinking that way, but it could be a sizable number. But the other thing is that the vaccines are not available. They
Oh,
keep
right.
bragging about getting this much vaccines, and the Philippines is really, down
Slow.
and out already with loans, international loans,
Oh my
supposedly to
God.
respond to the crisis and get the vaccines, and yet they're still trickling in. They're very slowly coming in. It's coming now this year finally.
Yeah.
More people are hopeful now, but yeah, it's slow. It's very slow. Even the senior citizens who were priority, I know a lot who are just beginning to get it this year.
Oh my
So,
God. Yeah. If you're talking about 5%, I mean,
and
there
the Philippines is somewhere around 115 million, 110
million.
million now.
So
So
yeah. So 5% is what, 50,000 people or something.
no,
Or
close to 5 million, close
oh, 5 million. Okay.
below 5 million, because we're somewhere around 110 or even 120 million now.
Oh my. Oh, that's right. 5 million. 5 million. Oh my gosh. And
5 million sounds a lot, but I mean five
yeah,
percent.
the way they did it here in California was very good. They prioritized the seniors and the frontline workers, police, firemen, anything of that sort. They got those done right away in probably 2 weeks, I think. In 3 weeks, at least the frontline people were already done, because
Right.
there are more seniors than our frontline workers, no. So and then probably in a month, or month, maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks, all the seniors were done. So when they finished with the seniors, when they said, okay, when the most vulnerable people are good, and then the frontline workers are good, then we can really concentrate on really getting everybody, because there's still a lot of people out there here in America that I know that they don't want, because of that the conspiracy theory that vaccines create autism and all of and stuff like that, which is untrue, because all of adults now have been vaccinated when we were babies. Those are the things that newborns and young kids get is, it's part of the language. Vaccine, bakuna, it's part of the
Yeah.
language of life, right? you know so yeah, it's a weird time, but and so segueing into your your world. My experience is that I was looking forward to the new James Bond movie that was coming out in Easter last year.
Mm.
I was so looking forward because that was like, I'm a big movie fan, and then I really like Daniel Craig as James Bond. He's like, I think he's my favorite, unless if they get Idris Elba to be the new one, then he's probably going to be my favorite because he's really badass. But right now it's Daniel Craig, and I was really looking forward to it. And then the lockdown happened, and now the movie's not. It hasn't been shown yet. They're really waiting until as much as much people can get vaccinated, so it can be shown in the theater. Because I've been watching movies, but people are still wary about the whatever. I've been watching in empty theaters.
Mm.
It's just probably at the most not even 10 people. I haven't seen a movie yet with 10 people in it, inside the theater room.
So that's good. That's safe.
Yeah, that's why. That's right.
You can
I was
distance
like, oh,
yourself
this
from
is much
them.
safer. Um, but I have been watching movies. All the movies that I had that since the theater started opening, I've seen, and it's awesome. It's awesome to see a movie in the movie theater, and yeah. So what were you doing right before the lockdown? Were you busy with something?
Yeah, yeah. In 2019 it was a busy year. I was even traveling, and I even traveled with my son, Mikhail. Who's a really popular director now, and we were in fact in LA in November 2019. I was in fact just a chaperone. I was
Mm-hmm.
accompanying him to his meetings. He had meetings with some Hollywood companies, and they were exploring possibilities of doing co-production and stuff like that. And
Wow.
I was busy. I haven't done a full length film in a while. My last film was in 2015, but I've been busy. I'm at that stage. I'm being invited as a, judge, juror in film festivals and
Yeah.
different institutions. I do talks and seminars. So I was quite busy then. Then early 2020, there were a lot of plans. I'm at the stage where I'm making efforts of restoring, digitally remastering my own films.
Oh, that's cool,
So that
man. Yeah.
I kind of like secure
Yeah.
whatever my legacy is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Early short films and my feature films made in the 90s and so on. So I was at that stage, and then also teaching, and then suddenly there was a lockdown in March.
Mm.
So it's a totally big change. But even before the pandemic, there's a lot of talk about how cinema was already changing. You could read news from Hollywood and big companies transforming, merging, or being
Yeah.
bought out and stuff like that.
Yeah. There's no more.
And
There's no more
yeah,
20th
streaming.
Century Fox.
That's true. It was really obvious already that cinema as a whole, as a business, as an industry, and even as an art form, was really changing and is moving. Sorry, moving towards streaming.
Mm-hmm.
I've
Yeah.
always said this to my students even more than a decade ago. The mainstream, the term mainstream is always referred to to theatrical cinema, the mainstream cinema. And
Mm-hmm.
I was saying, theatrical cinema is not the mainstream anymore. It's going to be literally streaming. So
Yeah.
mainstream became streaming, and the pandemic kind of like really, you know,
Yeah.
put down the gavel
It
on
it
that,
it
and
uh, it uh, it put proved the theory.
Yeah. So and then the people have become accustomed to it. So we don't really know where it will go even after the pandemic, but it's become the main
Yeah.
thing now. And theatrical cinema, as you've described, I miss it. I haven't been in a theater for over a year and a half now.
Yeah.
And I've always believed in that. That is classic cinema. I've always believed in it as almost as an art form. That the viewing of movies on a big screen in a darkened theater, it's a totally different, immersing experience. And I don't know how that's going to pan out eventually when this pandemic is over. But right now, you can see that the business is really shifting and moving towards home viewing, and streaming. I mean, everybody can argue that the quality uh, wouldn't really be an issue eventually. I mean, people would have more money, or the technology becomes cheaper. Everybody can probably set up a home theater with a big
Oh
screen,
yeah.
4K, 8K eventually in the future with Dolby surround and what have you.
Right.
But I always argue it's still a different. Uh, it's a different event. It's a different experience when you're somewhat communing, with other viewers in a large theater. And I always ask my students, what is really the biggest difference uh, with watching, let's say, at home? Even if you argue, okay, let's put aside the issue of quality. Let's say you have an 8K projection home theater at home,
Mm-hmm.
with the excellent surround sound and all the tech. You can even have popcorn and cinema seats and
Right.
but there is one very very big difference that actually pertains to the art of cinema and the way you watch it. And a lot of times they couldn't figure it out because they become accustomed to it, and especially younger people. They they're the generation of streaming and the internet.
Streaming. Right.
So we couldn't really think of it. And I always say the biggest thing is control. When you're watching a movie in a cinema, you absolutely have no control over it.
That's
And then they,
correct.
they find that funny. They find that funny because why the hell would control be an issue? I mean, isn't that great that you can rewind or pause but you think about it.
Yeah.
I'm teaching them film. We start from creating concepts, writing scripts. From the script stage, the writers, put so much effort in pacing the story, in structuring a story, in thinking that the character should be developed at this point, and a new conflict comes in, and at halfway through, we're seeing this, and then there's a
Yeah.
final. Cinema is temporal. It's confined within time and
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
And then when you're shooting it, the directors take so much pain in thinking about how he's going to pace that. Then comes editing. Look at all the effort that the artists put in securing the way scenes would come out, the sequence they'll be seen, the things that will be revealed in such a time. It's designed to be that way, meaning it needs to be seen that way. And then suddenly people will just watch it on their phone and pause it.
Oh my God, that's the worst that they
Didn't
watch.
continue. So
That is the worst.
I
The
even
people.
argue Netflix in a way
No, that
was a
is for
bad thing.
me.
But it's convenient, but and they will always argue that's not true. We can watch movies in Netflix and really love it and appreciate it. I'm not questioning the fact that you can appreciate it. I'm just
Mhm.
arguing that I will bet you would have appreciated better if you saw it on the big screen continuously from beginning to end.
Yeah.
So there's no way of knowing that now because everybody's watching it on their TV at
Yeah,
home.
that's why. I mean, I think that's why I was in an empty theater because everyone just got used to watching it at home. So the last film that I watched a week ago was F9.
Mhm.
The latest Fast and Furious. Oh my God, dude! If you can afford to recreate sound, that sound system that in that theater that I was in to watch that movie, then great. If you can afford it, but not everyone can afford a sound system like that. So it only costs $13 for that experience. That's what these kids are not getting. It's the experience. They get the movie, they get the film, they appreciate the art. But the experience of sitting in a theater, like you said, you have no control. And this has happened to me. I'd be watching the film and I'd space out somehow and miss something. And then I would like my impulse would be to grab a remote control and rewind it. But I'm in a
Yeah.
theater. So like you said, I have no control. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta pay attention. I can't space out because I can't rewind. So
Yes, yes.
then
I make it clear that I'm not against the technology. I
right,
enjoy
yeah.
watching film as well, and I
Hmm.
binge watch even YouTube short videos, documentaries, and it's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
There's
Yeah.
this convenience for us, but sometimes I think real art of cinema was never meant to be convenient. That's how I argue it.
Yeah.
That's not really a joke. It's a different attitude when you're investing yourself in the movie.
Yeah.
When you commit to it, you commit that I will be there at 7 p.m. because it starts at 7 p.m. And you sit
Yes.
there and you let the movie absorb you, and there's nothing you can do about it. My argument there, that my more aesthetic argument is it's life. It's the closest thing to life. You can never pause or rewind life, and that's how you experience it because you know that this is going to happen only once in front of me, and
Hmm.
I need to focus and be absorbed by it. So it's
Yes.
a different sense of appreciating it. Whereas even though people will say no, when I watch Netflix, I watch it from beginning to end. I still think it's a different attitude, when you're like lying down on your sofa, so relaxed and looking at the movie. Whereas when you're in a theater, it's a different engagement and a
Yeah.
different investment. As I say, you invest as a viewer,
Yeah.
so that experience will be lost if we. So in saying this, I'm not saying that all of cinema should be like that, and all I'm saying is I'm accepting the trend. I'm accepting the technology. Accepting the realities that this pandemic has presented us, and cinema is changing and transforming, and I'll accept that. I'll have to adapt to that.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is I hope we don't lose that form of classic cinema viewing.
Yeah.
It may become the alternative already because it's not the mainstream. So it's an alternative form of viewing. But I hope it doesn't totally disappear so that we have a choice as viewers.
Yeah.
If we choose to
Yeah. Yeah.
watch it
Yeah. Yeah. I
in that
mean,
experience.
yeah, you're right. Yeah. I mean, because I really enjoy watching a movie in the theater. And well, because, that's how my life was. I was not a streaming kid. I know how to stream now. I enjoy streaming too, but I would rather watch a movie in the theater if I had a choice. And
Right.
a good example was is that I saw this another new movie that just came out. I watched it last night. Um, it's a new film of Steven Soderbergh, and it's here. It's an. I was doing research on your IMDb, and it's actually the banner of IMDb now.
Oh,
What's it? It's here. No Sudden Move. It's with Don Cheadle and Benicio del Toro. So I saw that last night. It was a cool movie, um, but somehow in the middle I got bored. I got bored or I got distracted. So I stopped the movie, and I was like, I'm not feeling the movie, so I stopped it. So I had control. So it's like, and then after a while, it's like, you know what? If I wait till tomorrow again to watch this, I won't feel it. So I started it again, and I, paid attention. So that's the thing, that's the thing of viewing it at home. You have control. So somehow it's like, I don't know, what do you think if like movies like The Godfather or, not Saving Private Ryan, but like really long, dark, heavy dramas would fare today,
Mhm.
like that film, that last film of De Niro and Joe Pesci and
Irishman. Yeah.
yes, that was
I
really.
saw that on the big screen because we
Oh,
happened to be
really?
there. We were in LA in November 2019, and it premiered then. So I caught it on the big screen. I
Oh,
made sure to watch it, and
oh, that's so
I
cool,
enjoyed
man.
it.
I enjoyed
And
that.
then
Yeah.
there were mixed feelings, of course, reactions from friends who saw it streaming, and we had different opinions. But I said, I
Uh-huh.
don't know. I actually enjoyed it. I like it, well, because I'm also a big fan of Scorsese. Maybe that helps a lot, and
Yeah.
so I was really paying attention. So it had mixed reviews, I know. But yeah, having that experience in the theater, I really liked the film.
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, so, I would love to see The Godfather in the theater. If they have a special day or special night to do it, I'm there.
Mm.
Because I'm sure it's so much different from watching it on even if you have a 75-inch screen, it's still nothing compared to the movie screen.
Mm. I saw
Uh,
The Godfather on the big screen in the late 70s because I was too young when it first came out. But in the late
um
70s, I was in high school, sometime 78, 79, 79, I think. And it's back then, when there's a rerun in theaters. In Manila, we called it,
uh,
hey, there's a revival of Godfather. And I really made sure to
oh,
run out and watch it
wow.
in the theater. And that was extremely memorable experience for me because I was very young. I was in high school, and I saw the classic Godfather. It was already a 7-year-old classic by then.
Oh, wow. So The Godfather in the Philippines, was it received? Was it shown in 72?
From what I remember, yes, it was supposed to be a big hit. I remember my older brothers already comparing the movie with the novel.
Oh,
I
wow.
wasn't into it yet. Of course, I was young and I wasn't reading the novel or so, but I keep hearing of them talking about it. That's why when I heard about the revival, I made sure to watch it.
What theater did you watch it in?
I think it was in Quad in Makati. I met
Quad.
up with my friends, high school friends, and we all watched. And if you remember, in Manila then there wasn't. I think there was already a rating in cinema, but there was a very basic rating back then. And they just simply called the movie for adults only.
Yeah.
They would have
Yes.
this big sign outside the movie. So
Yep.
for adults means, was it 18 and above?
18.
I forget the exact age now. So
Yeah, I
in
think
fact,
18.
we were too young to watch it. It was a for adults movie, but we kind of
Wow.
just tried to stand tall and bought our tickets, pretended to be 18.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I may have been 15 or 16 then, if I
Did they
remember.
even check? Did they check your ID? No,
There
right?
was no such thing. They just asked, "Hey, how old are you?" Oh, I'm 18.
I'm 18.
Then you get in the movie, yeah.
Wow.
So anything like sexy films and all
Yeah,
that
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
would
yeah,
be
yeah.
simply labeled for adults only.
Yeah, right, right. That's right. So what was your reaction when you saw The Godfather for the first time?
Oh, I was really blown away. It was it was the first time I saw a film where it's ironic because now critics would say The Godfather was glorifying the mafia and violence and so on. But to a young person back then, especially, I mean, we're now bombarded with so much violence
Oh, yeah.
and material that shouldn't be seen by kids, all over the internet. But
Yeah.
back then, seeing that on the big screen, it really scares you. I mean, it's first time you're really scared of violence. I mean, seeing that ambush of Sonny Corleone on
Mm-hmm.
the freeway, on the toll booth, you know.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah,
It was
dude.
so shocking for me.
Yeah.
Uh, and, you know, I mean, you actually see this on the newspapers. I mean, you know, violent crimes, and you would see some violent photos on the newspaper. But
Yeah.
seeing it dramatized that way on the big screen,
It was
it
different.
was
Yes.
amazing and
Yeah.
shocking. You know,
Yeah, because
and so
it
it
was
scares you.
yeah, it was the way that he shot the the way that he shot it, and then I think also the manner of how he was murdered. In the toll booth, they were hiding
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
came out and they just ambushed him. And then also the assassination attempt of Don Corleone
You're
in
right.
the
Yes,
street
yes.
when he was buying oranges, right?
Assassination, yeah.
The way they shot that, I think if you show that now to a young person, I think they would still be affected because it's the way that it's shot.
Right, right.
It was shot from the top, I think, right? When they were shooting him.
Visual language, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And,
it's very important, yeah. The power of cinema in the
yeah,
language, you know.
yeah.
That's why The Godfather is still referred to by by many filmmakers today and inspired by it. I mean, to some it may look dated, and they can always argue that, but a lot of cinema today was anyway inspired by these older films.
Of course.
Just as much as Coppola himself admits he was inspired by the gangster films, also the
Right.
1940s and
Yeah.
maybe even earlier.
Do you um do you still, or did you ever appreciate the black and white films? Because for me, it's very hard for me to follow the story if it's a black and white film. Like if Gone
Are
with
you
the
referring
Wind.
to silent films or
No, no, no.
not necessarily silent?
If no
Let's
films
say
with sound already,
gangster
but
film
yeah,
noir,
like
1930s,
yeah, noir, yeah, film
50s.
noir, and yeah, like from the 40s, and even maybe even the early 50s, like the Marilyn Monroe stuff. I mean, of course, you watch a Marilyn Monroe movie, doesn't really matter what the movie is because you're watching her, right? I mean, that's why that's why she's there, to watch her. But like the serious ones, like when I hear this statement all the time that Citizen Kane is the best film ever made, you know. And then when I start to
One of
watch
my
it, I
favorites.
just
Yeah.
can't. I just can't because it's just too early in the game that the editing is not as I would like it. Sometimes, yeah, and then it's the black and white thing. I just get I don't know. I think I get bored or I get hypnotized with the black and white. I don't see. It's hard for me to see the true the true color because there's
Hmm.
only it's duotone. So
Yes, yes.
how about you? What do you feel about that?
I can totally understand that because I teach film, and a lot of my students, of course, younger generation, millennials and Gen Z,
Uh-huh.
they find it difficult sometimes to appreciate these classic films. The thing is, I got inspired by classic films very early on. The first film that really blew me away was Metropolis by
Mm-hmm.
Fritz Lang, which is a 1927 silent movie, but one of the earliest science fiction movies.
Right.
And
Yeah.
kind of big production with visual effects and sets, and I saw that when I think I was only 13 or 14 years old. We
Mm-hmm.
borrowed in high school. We borrowed a print, a 16 millimeter print from the German Cultural Center, and showed it in school. And I was just blown away. We had no idea. We just read about it and that it was available at the German Cultural Center in Manila. And so we thought, oh, why don't we have a kind of a classic film screening? Let's watch movies.
Wow.
And and we were blown away by that. And it opened my eyes, because before that, before that, as a 10-year-old, the greatest film made for you was Star Wars.
Right.
So, because you were obsessed by that. And then suddenly I didn't realize there was cinema like this, and so it opened my eyes to cinema very early on, even though I had no idea or even any inkling I may go into filmmaking because I was
Mm.
studying to be a painter. I was
Ah.
visual
Are you
arts.
are you an artist?
And
Are you a visual artist?
not anymore. I kind of lost it because I was into painting all the way to first year college. I
Mm-hmm.
entered the College of Fine Arts, but then I discovered filmmaking. I discovered cinema, and then I also saw Citizen Kane. I saw a really bad copy on. It must have been even Betamax, not VHS.
Uh-huh.
But I was blown away by that.
So why do you think? So why do you think uh, um, critics say that statement, make that statement that it's the best film, the greatest film ever made?
You know what
Because I,
what I always
uh,
tell my students is, you see, I look back at that time when I was getting interested into film and studying filmmaking and getting into film workshops. I realized I was not only into cinema, but I was interested in the history. I was
mhm.
reading a lot about the history. So I guess when I started watching these old classic films, I was watching it in the context of the time they were made. You see, so it brings a different level of appreciation for it, a different level of respect because you're looking at it as a piece of history, and you're not just watching it as a movie and take it in. Because I can understand how every viewer will develop his own tastes and likes, and of genres and types of films and a kind of pacing you want, and I can respect that. People will have different tastes. But I was watching those films really with that in mind, that I was looking not only as a cinema, a story, a visual story unfolding before me, but I was looking at it as almost like a documentary of cinema, about cinema, meaning I was looking at it as history. And
Right.
so I was trying to recall, oh, they did it this way because back then they
Mm.
didn't have, let's say zoom lenses yet, or
Yeah.
back then the cameras were like this and that. I was reading about, because I was into photography as well. I was
Hmm.
studying painting, but studying photography. So that kind of really helped me in my appreciation. So that's one of the best things I think I share with my students. Try to watch a film, an old film. To be fair to it, you need to watch it at the context of the time it was made, because it really opens your mind to a deeper appreciation of it, because you remember, like Citizen Kane was done in 1940,
Hmm.
41, just before America got into World War II,
Right.
things like that. I mean, the movie is not about war, but you start thinking that way. Wow, Orson Welles was making this film at a time when the world was about to explode into
To explode.
into World War.
Yeah.
And Orson Welles was only 25 years old, and
Wow.
stuff like this. So that blew me away because he aged in that film, And so I started looking at it more closely, and how he shot it and how he structured it. In fact, I will admit, when I first tried to watch it, because they're saying, it's become a staple of film students. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, you have to watch Citizen Kane. It's the greatest movie. So even I was kind of apprehensive about, why do they have to shove it down our throats? Why doesn't
Okay.
everybody have to watch it because the film scholars say so? So
Yeah.
I was kind of having that attitude when I first saw it, and my first viewing, I didn't finish it. I will admit, because it started with that newsreel in the beginning. If you remember, it started with this newsreel, basically telling the story of the life of Charles Foster Kane, the main character.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, this is such a boring film. It looks like a documentary.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
didn't even finish it. Almost the first 15 minutes is like that.
Uh-huh.
But when you get past that, you realize what this movie really represents. You know, that the story of that this man is represented in that newsreel, and that the news people were thinking it's lacking something. That's why the story of the movie is they go out and try to interview all the people who were in the life of Charles Foster Kane, and they piece
Oh.
together this puzzle. So that is
Oh.
the main story. So the story is actually not about Charles Foster Kane in a sense. The story is about a group of people trying to discover the truth about the life of this man. So
Ah.
it's like a mystery story. They're
Right.
going out to find the truth, you know. And in the end, you know, as a spoiler for those who are watching this and haven't seen the film, in the end, they don't find everything, and they miss a very important piece. Well, okay, I won't spoil it for anyone who has seen this, but that's very important. That powerful
Yeah.
ending where you
Right.
realize there's always a piece, you know, of truth that you may never find. You know, and you know the movie ends with that sign, no trespassing. It's almost like
Yeah.
saying you can never trespass in the life, in the private life of a person. So to me, it was so symbolic, you know, and it was just fantastic. And then I'm a cinematographer and photographer, so the black and white cinematography for me was very powerful, you know, because it plays with
Yeah.
contrast, shadow, and light, and all that. And that's why even without the color, it was so powerful for me.
Okay. Well, now that you put it that way,
Maybe you
you
can try
know,
and rewatch it
yeah,
now.
yeah,
Because it's
I
that
will,
powerful.
I'll give it another chance. You know, but I mean,
And think
like
in the
what?
context of the time it was being made.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what you said about it being no trespassing, and it's like you can't know everything about anyone. That really doesn't, especially here in America, dude. With the surveillance, the way the FBI surveils the citizens of this country. I'm not being a conspiracy theorist. This is in the
Mm.
news. People know
It's
this. The
true, yeah.
surveillance, because they hide behind the Patriot Act. That's what it's called, the Patriot Act. They did that after 9/11 so that they can surveil would be or suspected terrorists or whatever. But of course, now they can do surveil anyone and just say, well, we think he's a terrorist or whatever. There's no more privacy now, especially with the cell phones, man.
And the
Nothing.
CCTVs, you know,
Yeah,
the
there's
CCTVs all around. I mean, the UK started
oh
it very
yeah.
early, and it was a big issue back then about privacy and all that. But generally speaking, it's actually helped more on the really on the positive side, you know, in solving crimes and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But I can totally understand the issue of invasion of privacy with
Yeah.
all the CCTV cameras surrounding you wherever you go.
If they want it um it all boils down to if they want to trip on you, if you let's say if you start becoming a radical in public or whatever and really loud and automatic. That's automatic. They're going to surveil you. They're going to look at
Right.
all your records, your driver's license, whatever. When you get a driver's license, that's it. You're in the system. You know. If you get a passport, you're in the system of the world. Anyone can track you anywhere if you have a passport, right? So
Right. Right.
so so yeah, I mean, I guess that's why when people watch it, especially nowadays, when they see that ending, that no trespassing, it's like, hey, that's long gone. There's a realization that
The
you
truth.
know
But sometimes that's what appeals to me. See the fact that it's a very different world now, and
yes.
yet the issues that were being tackled by these older films actually relate to us so much because it shows us the roots of those issues.
Yes.
And that's why I'm really into nostalgia. You know, that's why I
Yeah.
like old films, classic films,
Yeah.
and I've been inspired by these older films really in in making my own films. In fact, I made a silent film called Kamera Obskura in 2012. It was
Right.
in the Cinemalaya Film Festival. It was really inspired by silent cinema, and one of the things that really inspired me and made me it pushed me to make that film is the fact that we've lost most of our cinema. And I'm talking about Philippine cinema. We've lost most of our early cinema. There are no surviving copies or prints of our early
Wow.
silent era. Silent era in the
Wow.
1920s and 30s.
Damn.
Filipino cinema started sometime in 1917. When we say Filipino cinema, we're referring to films made by Filipinos, produced by
And produced by Phil.
because we were an
Wow.
American colony, of course, in the 1900s, and we embraced cinema very early on.
Yeah.
Even when we were still a Spanish colony in the late 1890s, cinema was already here. There were film screenings in Escolta.
Oh, really?
So that's the birth of cinema for us, because meaning it was brought here. We were watching
Wow.
Spanish films, maybe French films, early silent cinema, and then by 1917, the first Filipino company already established themselves and started producing films.
Who
So a
was
lot
that?
of that has been lost. In
Who was
fact,
the first one?
Jose Nepomuceno. He what's the name of that? Malayan Pictures. And he
Malayan
established
Pictures.
he established his company in 1917. That's why we celebrate the Centennial of Filipino cinema from 1917 to 1919. Because sorry, I mean as the beginning of and we celebrated the Centennial, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, 2017.
Well, the celebration started 2017 to commemorate that. But they
Oh.
say 2019 is the key year, because they look at the year that the first film by Jose Nepomuceno, Dalagang Bukid,
Uh-huh.
which was released in 1919.
Right.
There's an interesting argument to that, with film scholars here. One of my mentors, Nick De Ocampo, is a film historian, also a documentary filmmaker,
Mm-hmm.
argues that it should be 1917, because that's when he established the company. And Jose Nepomuceno was already making short documentaries. He was practicing already with his first 35 millimeter camera,
Right.
shooting short documentaries, just not even a formal documentary, but just documents of events,
Mm-hmm.
until he finished the first feature film in 1919. So Nick is arguing that we should celebrate it on 17, because how come world cinema is being celebrated with the earliest forms of short form cinema, short
Mhm.
films
Yeah.
by the Lumiere brothers, or the early films of Edison. And these were short form, and a lot of them were documentaries. They hadn't moved into dramatic narrative filmmaking yet.
Okay.
Within a few years, filmmakers
Right.
started telling stories.
Yeah.
But the earliest form of cinema was short and documentary. So how come world cinema celebrated that way, and we celebrate it with a feature film?
Mm-hmm.
He argues that cinema is an all-encompassing word, because we just got so accustomed to using the word cinema even to refer to the venue, the building, which is a theater.
The theater.
That's a
Yeah.
cinema.
Right. That's not the cinema. That's the
Cinema
theater.
is the mother of all the terms.
Right.
It basically refers to motion pictures, moving
Yeah.
images. That's what
Yeah.
it literally means, cinema.
Yeah. It's
So
like saying music. It's
Yeah.
music and there's cinema.
yeah. So it's one of the earliest art forms, if you consider it an art. Of course, it was primarily a novelty back then and became a form of entertainment. But
Right.
if you say it was also born as an art form, then it's only over a century old.
Yeah.
But the point is that we should celebrate the early shorts of Jose Nepomuceno,
Mm-hmm.
which he began in 1917.
How
This
short?
is
How short are
it's an
those?
interesting point.
How short are those films?
That's the problem. There are no surviving copies of these. There are only
Oh,
documents to
oh
prove
my
that they were made.
god!
I think the Dalagang Bukid only has photographs
Oh
left.
my
There are
god!
no prints or copies. In fact, the oldest surviving films are from the 30s, 1930s, I believe. That so far we found. You know. So yeah, that's why I kind of got into this subject of reviving, sorry, restoring films,
Right?
and that's why I made that film Kamera Obskura, which was kind of
Yeah,
a tribute to lost cinema.
yeah. It, it's for me when I think of the Philippines, there are parts. Well, maybe I'm just thinking of Manila because I don't know how other cities live. You know how they run, but in Manila, there's no traditions, uh, stuff like that. They don't. It's like it's not important there. You know, and like what you're saying, the earliest films of Filipino filmmakers, they're gone forever. They're gone forever. That's sad, you know. There's no point of reference where you can show a young kid who is who lives in the slums and saying, "Look at that movie. A Filipino did that back in this year, 1917." And then when that registers to someone, it's like, wow. I mean, when I just spoke it, it's very. I'm just impressed already. You know, there
Right,
was
right.
the earliest Filipino films produced by Filipinos was in 1917. That's early, man. That is like that's
Yeah, we had a very early history because we were colonized, of course. So,
right.
like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
said,
yeah.
cinema moving pictures were brought to Manila very early on in 1897, 1897,
And these were French films.
the Spanish films,
Oh, they're Spanish
probably
films.
French films, the earliest silent films. And then, yeah, I mean, we embraced it early on. And then, of course, the Americans were producing films here in the early 1900s until, yeah, a Filipino was inspired to put up his own company.
Wow,
That's
that's awesome.
and of course, we kind of developed our cinema pattern after Hollywood. I mean, even the 30s, classic Hollywood films. But we had films in Filipino, in Tagalog.
Right.
We started telling our own stories, of course, but the tradition of cinema, the language, the way we shot films, it was highly influenced by Hollywood, and we kind of started copying that, even the business model, and
Yeah.
setting up big studios with contract movie stars.
Right.
It,
That's
it
right.
started then, because we
Yeah.
were copying Hollywood. We produced musicals and
That's
with
right.
big sets, and it was really emulation of what was happening in
And
Hollywood.
we had our own comedy duos. We had
Yes,
our
sir.
own Three
Exactly.
Stooges. We had our own,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, I mean,
Hugo
even,
and the
yeah,
Hugo.
even everything. I think everything because Filipinos love to copy Americans, you know, especially, I mean, not these days because, you know, Filipinos copy from everybody now, not just Americans, you know, but when it was majority American influenced, you know, it's just,
Okay, very quickly,
oh,
something just popped in my mind. It might be of interest to you. When you go to YouTube. One point, try to search for. There are some old films copies. Some of them are not very good quality, but from LVN and these old series, some of them have been posted on YouTube.
oh,
And I,
okay.
I actually came across one called Combo Festival, 1958.
Oh,
It's
shit.
not as old as silent films, but it's interesting. Try to see it.
Wow.
Some of the known bands at that time, the E heads of 1958.
They were recorded.
It's on YouTube. You can watch it.
Wow.
Combo Festival.
Okay.
They called bands
Oh
combo.
yeah, yeah, combo. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nasa
Yeah.
combo ka ba? Nagko-combo ka.
Yeah. Yeah, I
You
remember,
play in a
dude.
band.
I
So that
remember
was the
when.
term, combo. A
Yeah,
combo.
yeah,
So try to find that combo festival. It's
combo
great.
festival.
Rock and roll in Tagalog. Well, they were also seeing some English, um, uh, covers already of
Yeah,
rock songs in the 50s.
right,
But there
right.
are quite a few Tagalog original rock and roll songs there.
See,
So
that was my point. That the Filipinos, since the Philippines is like strategically located where different cultures come and go. It's a port, and
yeah,
then
and
it's very,
we
and
were a
all
melting pot.
we really, whatever America comes out with, we come out with our own because we're so connected to Americans. To their entertainment world, especially in cinema, in music.
Right, right, yeah.
In any era of rock and roll, the Filipinos had their version of it until
Mm,
now.
right,
Until
right.
now, whatever popular musician is out there now who that's young, there is a Filipino counterpart too, or Korean, or I mean, if it's from Korea or Europe, whatever their influences are now, there is a Filipino counterpart. That's so interesting, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why like a band like Juan de la Cruz would be very big back in the early 70s. They were so original because they embraced the true spirit of rock and roll, but they sang it in Filipino, in
They
Tagalog.
sang in Tagalog,
But
yeah,
but in a way, they were not exactly the pioneers. They're just one of the bands that really made it big.
yeah, yeah.
In the media and in publicity in the 70s. But like I said, when you watch this combo festival, you will see there were
Oh
Tagalog
wow,
rock and roll bands already. In fact, I used one old song from Ruben Tagalog. If you familiar with Ruben Tagalog, he's a
yeah,
popular singer from the 50s. He was mostly doing kundiman,
right, yeah,
kind of
uh-huh.
romantic songs. But he had one rock and roll song that I used in one of my early films in the 80s, which was kind of a period film of the 50s. So I found his 45 record, and we were able to get permission to use that, and we used it in the
Nice,
film. And
yeah,
I
man.
found that really fascinating. There was a lot of Tagalog rock and roll already back then.
You know what? You know
It was
what?
great to use it in film.
You know what I think is lacking right now and ever in Filipino films are soundtracks. Not
Hmm.
even a good soundtrack, a soundtrack. Somehow, um, don't get me wrong, the films are great on their own, but I think because music always brings to that that next level in films for me. For me especially, be it a classical soundtrack of The Godfather with no pop music whatsoever,
Hmm.
or on the flip side, like recently I watched the film Cruella, which is a great film. You got to see it. If you haven't seen it, it's really cool. It's a really cool film, and the soundtrack is awesome. Um, it's all classic rock because of the era of the film. But when it comes on, you're like, yeah, I love this song, man. And so it enhances the movie. And
Right, right.
that I think Filipino films should really do a lot more like that, a lot more classical music soundtracks, a lot more using pop music, mainstream music, or even underground music, whatever music, but it fits
Hmm.
the scene. Like I'm a huge fan of Guy Ritchie, and the soundtracks are just amazing, though, that he uses in his films. Something like that. So I think that would be the last piece of the puzzle for me in Filipino cinema in general. To
I
even
think
if it's
there's
a
a lot of
mainstream
attempt.
pop movie. I mean, look at the movie Grease with John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. The soundtrack's
Right, right.
amazing. you know
But it's
I
a
mean,
it's a bubblegum movie.
I totally understand what you mean. I can appreciate exactly what you're saying. Wherein a soundtrack really becomes iconic,
Mm-hmm.
and even if it were not a song, it's a score. uh, it really sticks with you. I mean, that's the thing with the classic movies. And in the Philippines, it works only with usually with a pop song, and a lot of times the pop song is really promoted and commercially released, sung by a big star, Sharon Cuneta or whoever.
Yeah,
And then usually the
exactly.
title of the song is the title of the movie. So that's a formula that, of course, works, commercially. They make the song popular, they make the movie popular, or they use a slightly old pop song and make it their own movie. But
Yeah,
to purposely create a soundtrack or purposely just choose a very classic song or piece of music and use it on your film, and make it iconic because of the
make it
use of the
iconic.
music content,
Yes,
then
exactly.
I always feel, of course, my short film Anino, the one that won in Cannes in 2000. It's not a
Congratulations.
commercial movie. Not everyone knows it, but I always try to think that I did that, with that film, because basically I got permission to use Yanos, uh, Banal na Aso Santong Kabayo.
Mm-hmm.
So by then, in the year 2000, it was kind of like a classic alternative Pinoy music. It was actually already a pop song, because it
Yeah,
plays
yeah,
on
yeah,
the radio and very successful from the early
yeah.
90s.
Right.
And I used that music precisely because of that, because I was creating new meaning by using that song, which was very impressionistic, very symbolic in its lyrics, but putting it on my film, which is a totally different story, but it created a new meaning by using that song. So
Yes.
that's my point. I try to do that, and also in Camera Obscura, I had Diwa De Leon, who's already based in the US as well now.
Uh-huh.
I think he does a lot of video blogs as well. He did the score for Camera Obscura, and because it was a silent, supposedly a classic Filipino silent movie, a
Uh-huh.
lost Filipino movie, we approached it with a classical music treatment, and
Right.
see, Diwa De Leon is schooled in that. He really writes music, and he has schooling with the classic form, classical
Yeah.
forms. And so he scored it that way. And in fact, we won the award also for best music score in the Cinemalaya Festival. But there was a lot of criticism of the soundtrack, the music, because unfortunately, and I have to admit it is true, that even though the music was really, really good, and he like really scored, it's a silent movie. So basically, he was scoring the visuals. He really painstakingly made scores for the visuals,
Right.
just like in the silent era of
Yeah.
cinema.
Uh-huh.
The unfortunate thing is we didn't have money. We didn't have a budget. Ideally, the pieces he wrote should have been played by a full orchestra.
Ah,
But we
okay.
don't have that money, so he
Right.
had to contend with using electronic equipment. And
Right.
so there were some reviews about the music saying that,
Ah,
Raymond used electronica in his movie. Admittedly, yes, you can tell it's electronic,
right. Strings.
music. But if you listen closely to the arrangement, to the flow of the music and the way it's running along the images, it was very classical, and it was so unfortunate that there was. But of course, I in an ideal situation, if I had money like in a Hollywood movie, I would have hired a full orchestra to play that.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, we had the opportunity and appreciation of the music when I forget how when exactly. It must have been in 2015. I made Camera Obscura in 2012. I don't know if it's in 2015, 2016 or so. But anyway, Cinemalaya celebrated a kind of looking back in films that have been in that festival. It's
Mm-hmm.
held at the Cultural Center of the Philippines every year. And in the opening night, they had uh, if I'm not mistaken, it must have been the Philippine Philharmonic Orchestra, or there was a full orchestra on stage at the CCP, and they made a kind of you call it a medley? I mean, arrangement of all the different music
Yeah, medley. Yeah, yeah,
pieces. A medley of
yeah.
the all the music soundtracks of the films that have won in
Oh,
Obscura. And so there was a segment where they played the music of Camera Obscura, and I was so elated that night because it's the first
nice.
time I hear
Yeah.
Diwa de Leon's music finally given the right performance, by an orchestra. And that's the
Wow.
way it should. So I could just imagine if the whole movie can be done that way. And that's why for me the film is unfinished.
Yeah,
I'm actually
yeah,
trying to raise funds.
yeah.
I'm contacting Diwa, but of course he's now in the US. He's quite busy. But I said I'm getting the permission and raise funds to re-record the music with maybe not even a full orchestra, but at least with the right instrument. Like
Yeah, that's right.
a quartet or a quintet. With the right woodwind and brass and the correct classic instruments, and re-record the soundtrack for that movie, and I can re-release it. Or I was actually trying to put together a project. Unfortunately, the pandemic came and stopped us dead on our tracks. But I'm
Yeah,
not giving up on it. I was actually trying to arrange for special screenings of Camera Obscura because it's a silent movie, but
right.
with a live orchestra
Yeah,
playing the music, the way
great.
silent cinema was
That is a
done,
great idea, man.
because that's how they did it back in the 1920s and 30s.
Yeah.
So it would be quite an experience to see that,
Where
with a live orchestra
where can I
performing.
see where can I see those two films? I haven't seen those. I saw Himpapawid here.
Right, right, yeah.
I was like
So it's
I
good
was
you saw it on the big screen.
Yeah, I saw it on the big screen,
Yeah,
and it's like, oh man, this is so cool. I'm watching Raymond Red in the States. Yeah, you know. So
yeah.
that was cool. Yeah. So how about Camera Obscura and what's the other one?
I could maybe give you a private link to view it.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
I will now segue to another conviction that I really stand by, in terms of filmmaking and cinema.
Right. Go.
I've always told also my students this, that I hope they don't take it as me being stubborn,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not my way of saying that I don't believe in where the technology is heading. We were discussing that it's moving towards streaming and so on. I'm totally for it. I myself, I'm adapting to it and looking into future projects that would more or less work for the new technologies, including streaming, viewing it, and as well as with new digital equipment, how to shoot a film and stuff like that. You adapt to the new technology, but all these years, I've never put my films online. I
Mm.
You won't find them online,
Right.
except for Anino, which is a short film, which is right
Yeah.
now at the YouTube channel of Cinema One. Cinema One Originals YouTube. Cinema One is under ABS CBN company. So if you go to their YouTube channel, you can actually watch Anino for free.
Oh, okay.
So that's the only one that's online. But all my other films, I've actually kept off from the internet, and I only do special screenings. And that is my way of making a statement
Mm-hmm.
about classical theatrical cinema. That I wish my films would only be seen the way they were intended. Because when I made these films, I imagined them on the big screen.
Right.
Again, people can accuse me I'm being
No,
stubborn
no,
or
no. That's rock
it's
and
not
roll,
that.
man. No, it's rock and
It's
roll, man. That's the
yeah,
rock
it's
and
an
roll
artist's
attitude.
preference. I'm not saying streaming is wrong, but and in fact, I will admit that I eventually will have to bow down and put these films online. But as long as I can hold back, I will try, because I really want to try and do special screenings. So that's what I've been doing with these films. I show it in film festivals, special screenings in the universities, which have good facilities. Like the University of the Philippines has the UP Film Center,
Yeah.
which is a good theater. So we've done a lot of screenings there, and so it's very alternative. It's still kind of underground, so to speak.
Right.
But the alternative cinema, independent cinema, as it is in all over the world anyway, but specifically in the Philippines, has become it hasn't become mainstream, obviously, but has become quite popular. That more people are becoming aware that there is such an alternative. That you can watch these alternatively made films.
Yeah.
Meaning different modes of production, different means. And this is how I started. I mean, I made these really low budget short films shot on Super 8, the cheapest film format back in the 80s.
Yeah.
That's how I started my career. And I was lucky with these really small, low budget, very modest films. I was able to go to big film festivals. I mean, I found myself showing these films in big festivals where I was the only one showing Super 8. I was in Berlin, Hawaii Film
Wow.
Festival, San Francisco Film Festival. It's amazing. You look at the program; it was the only Super 8 film in the program.
How do you get into a film festival? Is it open to everybody in the world as a filmmaker? Basta you're a
Well,
filmmaker.
it has changed a lot as well. I always tell other filmmakers this. How I've seen it change and transform through the decades. When I started back in the 80s, there were very few. I'm not saying there are none, but there were very, very few Filipino films who would have an opportunity to be
Yeah.
shown in a major film festival. There may be some, small film events, universities, other institutions, but you talk of major film festivals, especially the A-list festivals
Yeah.
like
Uh-huh.
Berlin and Cannes and
Cannes.
Venice, and then of course San Francisco Film Festival, New York Film Festival. These are big festivals,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and so it was quite a dream for me just to be invited into these festivals with these tiny, modest
Wow.
Super 8 short films. So I would show
Yeah.
it as a program, a set of short films, and that's how I started. So it's you can't say it was open, but the film programmers would go out of their way to find films,
Wow.
and I was lucky that there were film programmers. More specifically, there was a famous British film programmer named Tony Raines. He went to the Philippines. He's known about, of course, our national artists, Ismael Bernal, Lino Brocas. Their films were the ones that were, and Mike De Leon. Their films were the ones
Wow.
going to Cannes
Yeah.
and Berlin and so on. But suddenly he discovered these small short films. They were so fascinated by it, and he said, "This should be programmed. The world needs to see this." So I was so
Nice.
lucky that he chose my films. He went to the Mobile Fun Film Institute where I worked and where a lot of the short filmmakers were based. And he watched a lot of films and he chose my films and he promoted it
Wow.
in the UK and one thing led to another. So that's how I got into that and
Do,
started making full length films eventually.
do you write your films too?
Yeah, I've always written my own scripts. I will admit I'm not really a great writer, but I can conceptualize and
Uh-huh.
think of detailed stories. And sometimes I collaborate with my friends who are writers. Like one of my collaborators, Ian Victoriano, was a schoolmate in high school, in the Philippine High School for the Arts. Where I
Yeah.
started with visual arts.
Uh-huh.
And so we've had a long, relationship in collaborating. He collaborated with some of my early short films. He also co-wrote one of my full-length films, Sakay, the
Oh
historical
yeah,
monument of
I've seen
Sakay
Sakay. Yeah, that was
back
great.
in 1993. So
Yeah.
yeah, he co-wrote the screenplay there, and yeah, that's how I've done it. And I told you, I think I told you back in was it in 2010 when we showed Manila Skies, Himpapawid in LA,
Yeah.
that the film did not really have a screenplay. It only had an outline, a story outline. And yet, a lot of people see the film and think it had a very detailed screenplay.
Wow.
Most of the
Damn.
dialogue you heard there was improvisation, but of course, it was controlled improvisation. I tried to control
Yeah.
much of it. So it's a different approach to filming. It's amazing because the film also won some best screenplay awards, even though it didn't. And in fact,
Well, there you go,
the
man.
Oscars.org, the AMPAS, American Motion Picture Arts and Sciences,
Yeah.
they have an archive at Oscars.org. They actually wrote me, inviting me to archive my script
Oh,
for Manila
nice.
Skies. After the
Wow.
screening in LA, so they we
So
we
they,
we
so
we
they
honored
really
to
they
have
liked
their
it, huh?
script
Wow.
to be in the library, and then I had to say, well, there's no screenplay.
You know what I think it is? I think it's the twist in the end. Because when the twist happens in the end, I mean the thing, you're like, whoa. and then when he,
Blown
of course
away
he,
by it.
yeah.
But anyway, I actually submitted the sequence outline, the treatment, and they archived it. So it's in the
Oh,
Oscars. And
wow.
I'm kind of proud of that, to say
Well,
that
congratulations,
one
man.
of my
That's a
screenplays is archived in the
dude.
Oscars.org
That is a huge
archive library.
that is a huge
Hmm.
huge achievement, man. I mean, not just for
Hmm.
you, but for the Philippines.
Hmm.
Because now,
Um,
if someone wants to research, that's why if someone wants to research Filipino filmmakers, so there's some people out there who are really nerdy about everything or anything that you never know. And that's why I started my podcast, and all of the people that I am interviewing are people that I think need to be heard, their stories, their history, whatever, so that if ever in the future or now or whenever, because it's in the internet forever, some young kid in Europe, in Denmark, will say, Philippines, I wonder if they play rock and roll music there or whatever, and then all these
yeah,
interviews will come out of these. So that's
yes,
the
yes,
reason why I'm
hopefully.
doing this podcast. So for you, and so like that, it's the same thing, that your work is archived in the Oscars database, so that if anybody wants to learn about Filipino films, you are the first one you are going to be the representative. You're the first one they're
That's
going to
why,
see.
yeah, that's why I said earlier in this interview, I'm already at that stage where I'm into archiving my own works and
Yeah.
kind of securing, my little legacy, whatever, whatever that is, because I want it to be seen. I mean,
Yes.
I'll be dead and gone 100 years from now, but just the thought that maybe 100 years from now, young film enthusiasts might still see or read about the little short films we did during this time.
Exactly.
Uh, I'm already fulfilled and celebrate
Yeah, and I think
that
I
that
think
possibility can happen. So
yes.
but that's why I'm trying to promote awareness in preservation and restoration and archiving, and I'm trying to do that with my own films because there's no funding yet for that. I mean, for my type of films, there's a
Yeah.
lot of archiving going on. They're remastering a lot of the classics right now. ABS-CBN has their own Sagip Pelikula. I
Wow.
don't know if you read
Yeah.
about it. They have this program where
Wow.
they're acquiring the rights to remaster certain films. Mike De Leon himself made efforts with international institutions to remaster films. Recently, he remastered just last year Kisap Mata, one of my favorite films from 1981, 82.
Mhm.
With Vic Silayan and Charo Santos, Jay Ilagan. It's really a classic suspense movie. One of the films that influenced me in the early 80s. So, and it's been digitally remastered. So
Wow.
through the help of foreign institutions. So
Yeah.
it's amazing that that's being done. But it's only being done right now, slowly, one film at a time. And of course, they're starting with the really big, true classics. So
Right. Yeah.
I'm thinking before my films decay and
Yeah.
dissolve
You
into,
need a you need an underground
yeah.
financier to do that, like a guy who thinks like you.
So even
Yeah.
film restoration preservation is an alternative underground thing. It's
Yes,
an underground
exactly.
effort.
Yep.
I'm looking for my own support and funding. and
Yeah.
I'm doing it myself. Trying to remaster. I actually went to LA around the same time or after I screened Manila Skies in
Yeah, yeah,
LA.
yeah. You did.
I
Yeah,
went back in 2012. And
yeah.
then I went to Burbank. There's this company that digitally scans Super 8 film. So I was able to
Oh,
scan my early Super 8 films. And,
oh,
and it's taken me this long. It's almost 10 years ago already, 9 years ago. And I'm still remastering. When you say remaster, you scan the film.
yeah.
So you scan the image. So now you have a digital image
Right.
on video of the film, whether it's HD, 4K, whatever resolution, and then you have to remaster, meaning you have to remix the sound, re-sync it. Maybe you have to re-edit it.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you
I get
clean
it.
it up a bit. That's what
So
really
it's all
remastering
it.
is. So
Right,
it's
right.
very tedious. Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Wow.
Sometimes they're purists, so you don't really touch it up so much. But it's amazing when you see like Hollywood films, remastered. It's amazing to watch. It almost looks like you watch a remastered James Dean film or Marlon Brando
Yeah.
movies.
I mean
It
I mean
almost looks like it was shot yesterday. It's
exactly.
amazing. So I'm starting to get into that. You can try watching Anino on YouTube channel of Cinema One, as I said. That
Okay.
film is from 2000. It was shot in 1999, so it's
I
still it is quite
I think
time.
I think I watched Anino. I don't remember it anymore. I think I watched it. I think I was when did that come out?
2000. It came out in
Oh,
2000.
2000. I was still
I had many special screenings,
yeah, I think I watched it. I
um,
think I saw it.
but
Yeah.
it actually went online. It's my first and only film that really went sorry commercially online because early 2000s was the beginning of streaming. Internet, especially in the Philippines, was still
Right.
very slow and it was unheard of. Not really unheard of, but unimaginable to watch a full length movie in good resolution from the internet. You
Yeah.
know, it didn't exist yet in a way,
Yeah.
but
Right.
there's
Yeah. Yeah.
already streaming of short films. And Anino was purchased by Atom Films, one of the pioneers of early, like commercial streaming, where you pay a subscription or you pay per view.
Yes.
And so Anino was there already on Atom Films in the early 2000s.
Ah.
So it's my first and only film that has been on streaming officially.
Right. Officially. Yeah.
My other films, as I've said, I've kind of held back and done only special
No,
screenings.
I think that's cool, man. I think that's cool because, like you said, if you want to see, you know, a Raymond Red film, you have to go out, get in your car, go in a theater, sit with someone you don't really know or whatever, a big crowd, another crowd, and experience it together. And and then if you feel that pride, there's a whole room of that pride just coming out because they're watching a Filipino film. That's good. So
Yeah,
it's
I
really
appreciate when you went out of your way to watch it in was it? It wasn't in L.A. What city was it?
that
Again?
was in here in my city, right here. The local theater was showing it. That's where we saw
Right,
it.
right. Yeah, we
Yeah,
were going around then. Yeah, there were a few theaters we showed it. And I think we went to Carson City as well, and
yeah.
yeah, and then
Of course,
later on
man. I mean,
we flew to
dude, I
San
know you. I
Diego.
mean, I know the director. I was like, we have to watch that. I know the director, man. You know. And then another thing that most people, or a lot of people, or maybe all people don't know is that you directed the Wolfgang video too.
Yeah,
You remember that? It
yeah, I
was this.
posted it on my channel.
Yeah, it was the song called Meckam from the Black Mantra album, the fifth album, my last album with Wolfgang. Um,
You should
and it
show it
was,
here. Yeah,
huh?
look for it on. You can try and show it here on your
Oh yeah, yeah,
podcast.
yeah, definitely, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's on YouTube. It's on yeah.
It's. I'll give you the link. I know I posted it on my YouTube channel. I don't really promote my channel. I mean, I have a channel, but
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not
No,
really
I saw it.
into.
I saw it recently,
But
and I was
it's
like,
there. It's somewhere. I
it's
posted it.
yeah, and it was cool because you, it was black and white, and I think were you was it your Metropolis influence there because you used
It was
miniatures.
that the beginning of that. Yeah. See, I was
Yeah,
doing my studies for Camera Obscura, which eventually happened in 2012. But
Okay.
in the early 2000s, I was already obsessed in kind of experimenting with look and form, and my influences from the early silent movies,
Yeah.
the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Metropolis, and such. I was obsessed with it, and so I was kind of playing around. That's why I proposed it to you guys. What can I do this treatment for the
Yeah.
video? So
And I remember when we got to the studio. Was it where
oh,
was
and by the way, we shot it in Filmex, and by the way, we shot it on 35 millimeter film.
Yeah,
No
that was
joke.
film. That
We
was
shot it on
film.
35. I got, I really scrunched up and looked for short ends and leftover film from
Oh
our
my
production
god! I mean,
company.
that's it's the perfect band to do it with because we didn't care. We're like that. We appreciate that kind of thing. Okay, it's gonna be film, but the director's gonna scrounge up as much film as he can. It's like cool, man. It's like it's rock and roll. It's a rock and roll approach. It's like
Yeah,
bahala na,
yeah.
basta let's do it this way. Let's get the quality up here. So bahala na what we have to do to get the quality here. You know. And I remember when we got there and the miniature city was already set up. I was like, "Oh, this is so cool, man!" I was blown away. I was like, "Wow, I
Yeah,
really
and there were animation segments, of course, which you initially didn't see yet, but I showed you
no,
some
yeah,
miniatures and stuff like that.
yeah."
And
And
we
then
had to work on that a lot more after we shot the live action
the
scenes.
band, yeah. And then you had the Godzilla toy. You had you had that robot that 1940s wind
Wind
up
up toys.
robot. Yeah, I love it, man. Yeah, if you guys listening out there, go to YouTube, search for Wolfgang Meckam, Meckam, and check it out. That's Raymond Red who directed it. And then I remember we did also the halftime thing. We would slow down the music, and then you sped it up
Oh yeah,
in
yeah.
with the, in real time, in real tempo, whatever. So
Right, right.
it looked like really robotic and fast.
Because
And
a lot of the movement was akin to like silent was much slower, which created actually fast motion. The
yeah,
opposite.
exactly.
So we wanted to create that fast motion thing, and then that's why I had you play the music slower.
Really slow. That was
We
fun, man.
computed
That was
we
so fun.
computed we computed the slowdown on the music because of
Right.
course you were just playing against the playback, right? The playback
Yeah. But we had to
recording.
play. I remember we had to crank up the monitors really loud because I had to, when you're playing a music video, when you're recording one, the drummer has to be hitting something. I don't have to
Right,
be hitting the snare, but I have to be hitting the cymbals for sure.
right, right.
To simulate the drumming. So it's like crank up the monitor so I can hear the music while I'm bashing on the cymbals. And it was funny because you could the vocals of Basti were like
Right. So yeah, I
and then
remember you're playing
yeah
so slow, and
yeah I was playing so slow like
it's too
but
bad we
then
didn't. Yeah, we didn't shoot behind the scenes. Then it would have been interesting to see that, the
I
making of
know,
it.
man. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's still in my mind, so it's safe there. It was a really cool experience. And then I remember also when our boss in Sony, Wally Champsay, he said, "Oh, we're gonna have Raymond Red do your next video." It's like, "Oh wow, man!" I was like, because Wally was really taking care of all the bands in Sony. He was really taking care of each band, and he was really specializing in each band's identity. So he said, "You know what? I think Wolfgang being, yeah, they're a hard rock band, but they're not really a pure hard rock band. So they're kind of alternative. So maybe we should make the director an alternative minded person as well." So it fit perfectly. And the end result is really cool, man. And then you have those zombies in the Barong Tagalogs.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man. And then I remember there's one scene that you had them rolling one of the guys in the banig. So
Right, right.
It's funny, dude. When you see the finished product, it's like, oh, they're rolling a joint. They're rolling a joint. They're rolling a big
Yeah,
joint.
it was for roll another habit.
Yeah, there
Part.
you
I
go.
was really
That's
thinking of
it.
those things. Yeah. I
Oh
was
my
really thinking
god.
of segments for the lyrics. I
See,
mean,
dude,
it could
you're
seem very literal, but the same way it was kind of impressionistic. Seeing these weird
totally
figures,
impressionistic,
guys.
man. It's
Mm.
total avant-garde, bro. It's total avant-garde, man. I mean, if you shot the band in black and white as well, it would be totally avant-garde. I don't think the mainstream audience would have appreciated it if it was all black and white. Because I would, because it would then be like, wow, look, it's the band in black and white. It's film noir or something like that. But it came
Mm.
out great, man. It was a great music video. Yeah, it was
I
an honor to
remember
work.
during that time. Wait, what year was that again? Was it 2002 or
No, the 2001.
2001?
Or
Yeah,
no, wait. Black Manta came
yeah, because
out
I
in yeah,
no,
because
it was just interesting that around that time, Red Hot Chili Peppers video of oh, sorry, mental block now.
mental
What's the name
block.
of that song?
What
Forgot.
video?
Uh,
Um,
one of their videos was obviously inspired by the silent movie, especially the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. You can
okay.
see the imagery. And I remember when our video came out, there was a lot of comments that they would say, "Oh, you're trying to copy Red Hot Chili Peppers," and I
Oh,
totally disagreed with that
what video
because
of the Chili Peppers is that?
uh,
Is it black and
anyway,
white?
I kind of disagreed with that because I had been inspired by these images since the 1980s,
Exactly.
by
Yeah.
Caligari and then all of Silent Cinema and of course Metropolis and all those, throughout the 90s I've been imagining these images and I'm thinking I want to use it in a film, in an experimental short or even a music video. And so that when that opportunity came up, I
Yeah.
realized this is it. I could start using it here. And then eventually, years later, I started using the inspiration in several films. I made a short film until I made Kamera Obskura, which was the full length.
Mm, right.
So it's unfortunate that, of course, when you talk of classic, experimental or German expressionist cinema, they always refer to these films. They were
Yeah.
very popular, Caligari and Metropolis, and so it's very likely that someone would really be inspired by it. I'm not saying I'm the first one or
Of
I'm so
course. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
many film students are inspired by it.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, when we did that video, it absolutely not inspired by that music video itself. It just happened to come out earlier,
Yeah.
but the images I've already imagined
No, but
beforehand.
the thing is, I mean, a critique like that is really baseless because they're saying, well, you're copying the Chili Peppers. That means that they don't know that about German in
Yeah,
uh,
that
films.
whoever I forget now. I remember I read about it. Whoever directed that video obviously was so inspired by
Yeah,
the German expressionist
he
cinema.
was
So they're
probably
both
a film student.
taking cues from that and being inspired by it.
Yeah,
Um, it's not exactly appropriation. Appropriation does not necessarily mean it's negative. It's more being inspired, and in fact, it's what you call an homage. You pay homage to the original.
yeah. Well,
That's the
actually,
difference between plagiarism and
no. I mean, that's
we
why
always discuss that, plagiarism or appropriation and paying an homage. But when you pay an homage, you purposely want your viewers to notice it, to recognize that it was inspired by these images, these
exactly.
films.
There's
You know,
no.
so
It's like that's why I say that it's baseless because these people who say, oh well, you're copying the Chili Peppers. No. The director of the Chili Peppers video and Raymond Red are inspired by the same guy. That
yeah,
is the correct critique. That is the correct thing. What they're
Right,
saying
right.
is baseless because you're not copying the guy from the Chili Peppers director. No, you guys have the same influence. That's all it is. It's like if it's like when Wolfgang would be labeled Metallic of the Philippines or whatever or what rock band, we'd go. Or I mean, I'm sorry, not Metallica, but like uh, we were at the same time that Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, and all of those guys came out, and we came out maybe a year later, 2 years later, and they would say some people would
Grunge
critique
era.
us, oh that band they sound like Candlebox. Candlebox? Who the hell's Candlebox? I only know that one song of Candlebox. You mean we're copying that one song? Our whole album sounds like that one song of Candlebox? That's ridiculous. No, the music that Candlebox, the members of Candlebox, the members of Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, and the members of Wolfgang and Razorback, we all listen to the same music. So that's why the music that comes out of us sounds similar because the influence is the same. The root is the
There's
same.
always influences. Yeah.
Yeah, we are influenced by Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath. Soundgarden is influenced by Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and the Beatles. Same with Wolfgang. So
Which
if
brings
there's
me back to Citizen Kane.
yeah, right,
That's
right,
why I'm so amazed with Citizen Kane, because during Orson Welles' time, there was still very little. I mean, cinema was very well established already, Hollywood cinema and so on. But comparing to today, there was so little cinema to take influence from. Meaning, during their time, you really had to think of original things, and
yes,
we are now taking inspiration from what they've done. So, or I think that's one of the things that critics have always praised about Citizen Kane and Orson Welles.
right,
That he had to think up of original things, even the technology. They had to reconfigure new
you're right.
lenses to
Yeah.
create a deep focus, because Orson Welles had a very specific vision for how he wanted the scenes to be photographed. With
Now,
sets, with scenes.
yeah,
I think he dug up the floors of the set so that he could do low angle shots and stuff
right.
like this. They seem ordinary now. With all the
But he was
technology
the
and
first. He was the
yeah,
pioneer.
he thought of these things. And one of the greatest things, going back again to it's kind of related to our music video of Meckam,
Yeah.
that taking inspiration from the old films. And during that time in 1940, when he made Citizen Kane, he created that newsreel. You see, during that time, television had been invented, but it hadn't really exploded in the market yet
Wow.
as a consumer product.
That was
And
the first
so
newsreel.
news had to be seen in theaters. That's why they were
Right.
newsreels. You
Yeah,
go
yeah,
into a
yeah.
movie house and watch the news in
Yeah.
between the movies.
Yes.
And so he created that a semblance of a newsreel for his character, Charles Foster Kane.
Yeah.
And when he put that newsreel together, he already had the sense of creating the passage of time by using the form, meaning the texture of the film. If you look at
Mm.
that sequence now, the movie, of course, has been digitally remastered, so you can now watch Citizen Kane in very clear, very crisp black and white.
Right.
You can
Uh-huh.
watch it on Blu-ray or HD or so on, or 4K even. But that sequence, they didn't clean up the images because it was purposely made that way. He had already the concept
Mm-hmm.
of aging the segments
Mm-hmm.
to connote the passage of time.
Wow.
That really blew me away. I think somebody in 1940 doing black and white films was already thinking I could use the texture of film because he aged in that newsreel, in that 15-minute newsreel. You can see him aging. And then he was already playing with the form. In the early part of the newsreel,
Mm-hmm.
when Charles Foster King was younger, it
Mm-hmm.
was like silent cinema, jerky movements, a lot of scratches and dirt on the film. And then
Yeah.
as the newsreel progressed, it was getting cleaner and cleaner. And then there was
Oh.
already sound that was kind of garbled because there
Right.
was already sound cinema. So in that newsreel, you can see the history of cinema. No, no, no,
Wow.
I never read this from any. I'm sure some critic must have noticed it already, but I'm just saying I discovered it for myself. I never
Yeah.
read this in
Right.
any book or critic.
Right. Right.
You know? I realized it. Holy shit! You know,
Shit, man. See,
Orson
now
Welles was
now I
making it in
understand. Yeah.
real form
Yeah.
to show the passage of time as Charles Foster Kane was aging. And then the very last segment of the newsreel,
Yeah.
he was really advanced. He was way ahead of his time. The last part of the newsreel was, because Charles Foster Kane became a recluse. He hid in his mansion. That was the story. So in the last part of that newsreel, it's like a 16 millimeter camera, paparazzi handheld camera.
Wow. Oh gosh, I gotta see this
Peeking
movie again,
peeking
man. I gotta see this movie
uh,
again.
through a fence.
Yeah.
I was, it looked so ordinary now, but I was blown away. That's 1940. He already thought of that.
Yes. Yeah.
That in the end, it's 16 millimeter shot by press cameraman.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Paparazzi stealing shots, and then he was showing Charles Foster Kane on a wheelchair,
Uh-huh.
being rolled by his butler, and then it was like stolen shots through a fence. It was very shaky.
That's the
That
root.
was
That's where all films.
was
That's where
conceptual.
all.
And
That's
now
where
it's
all.
in overuse, of course.
Yeah.
And I mean, with purpose. In movies like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
movies that want to show the passage of time. But the concept came from that. It's amazing. I've never seen any other movie before Citizen Kane. I could be wrong, but I've never seen any other classic movie before it that used that concept. That
But
used
I
the physicality of film to show passage of time by the aging of the film.
now I
It's
understand.
form and content together.
Yeah, I understand now why people would say that, because it's just like saying, because I always when I try to explain something to my mind, I always try to relate it to music, artists, musicians, whatever. So in my mind right now, what Citizen Kane is, or who Orson Welles would be the Jimi Hendrix of film.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Because what Jimi Hendrix did um, on the electric guitar is what electric guitar is now, and forever it will forever be. He was the first one to play the electric guitar like that, like wailing, wild rock and roll, loud guitar. He was the first and played really well.
Right.
So,
Right.
so I mean, he started that in 1967, the first album of Hendrix. It took Eddie Van Halen 1979 to surpass that. I'm not saying I'm a Hendrix fan, but Eddie Van Halen is the next step to electric guitar playing. But from 1967 to 1979, it was Jimi Hendrix. That was the Orson Welles. So I relate to it like that. It's like
Right. Right.
whatever because
we're
whatever he was
exploring.
doing there, it's already standard now.
It's exploring, experimenting new possibilities
Yeah,
with the medium. So that's exactly what Orson Welles was doing. That's why he's so highly,
he's
regarded and put up on a pedestal in the
yeah,
history of cinema.
yeah. In hip hop lingo, they call that OG, the OG. He's
Yeah.
original gangsta man.
Yeah.
Orson Welles in the film, in cinema. In the cinema world,
Yeah.
he is OG. He's like he's uh, in rock and roll. He's like Little Richard and Chuck Berry and Elvis. They're the OGs of rock and roll. Orson Welles is one of
Right.
the
Right.
OGs of film. Because until now, whatever he was doing then, which was advanced in 1940, and it's already just regular now, people have to, I think I didn't realize that, but now that I realize it, and then I see it, if I watch that movie again, which I will, with that in mind,
Yeah, that
now I'll
would
be
be
like,
great.
oh shit. Then now I'll probably be like, yeah.
And then
I think-
also, yeah. So also, yeah, like I said, watching it in the context of the time it was made.
exactly,
Precisely.
yes.
see that, like that example I said, this texturing, and we see it so much in almost anything. It's even started in experimental cinema, like tampering with film and scratching it and
Yes.
putting it in camera. It was
Yeah.
experimental before, but then it made its way into music videos in the 80s. It was
And
the
now,
normal fare. Your music videos should have scratches, shaky camera, and all that.
yeah, and now it's
And now
part
it's
of
in the mainstream. Yeah,
it's
it's
a
part of
it's a it's and now it's a filter. It's a
yeah.
filter on
And now you
Instagram.
can you just click
Yeah.
a button and it's a filter. But if you think
So
of it in the context of the time of that early cinema in the 30s and 40s, also Chaplin was a pioneer
mhm.
in film language.
I love
That's
Charlie
another
Chaplin.
thing, you can study. It's suddenly so amazing for me. Um, of course, it's partly because of me also being a cinematographer. I'm a technical person too.
Yeah.
I don't know, I really dwell into the techniques and the technology that was used to create it. But of course, I'm also obsessed with why it's being made. What is the meaning
Yes.
behind it, and what does it symbolize? So it's not just a matter of doing it for the sake of doing it, and then that's
Yes.
happening a lot in cinema now. Because when the drone was invented, and now you can do a aerial shot without hiding a helicopter.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
a lot of TV commercials where I risked my own, myself.
Yeah.
I would strap myself outside the helicopter just to shoot that aerial shot.
Oh my
And
God.
then holy shit, now you just do an RC of a drone and with all the
I
safety
know.
and
I
convenience, and
that
suddenly everybody wants to use it. But
mm,
it boils down to why are you going to use it? What does that shot really signify in your
yeah.
story, in your
Yeah.
message? And that's what's so strong about something like Citizen Kane. That
Yeah.
everything is done with purpose,
With
and
purpose.
everything served the story, and the message and the concept.
That's when like what you just said, the why. I have one of my friends that I interview here is Chef Ramon Antonio, and I'm also a food enthusiast. I don't like calling myself a foodie because I always liked food anyway, you know.
Hmm.
But with the advent of Anthony Bourdain and all of that, my interest in that has become deeper. And now,
Yeah, me too.
because of Anthony Bourdain, now I want to know all the why. Before it was just, oh, this is good. I love Chinese food. I like shawarma. The usual good stuff in Manila. But now, when it's like every time I go back to visit the Philippines, it's to see my friends, of course, but it's also to eat because the food scene in the
Yeah.
Philippines is just out of this world. And now it's so much interesting to me because now I'm so interested in the why. And the why is so
It's one of the
interesting.
things you really tend to dwell on now, especially during the pandemic when you're
Exactly.
mostly at
Yes,
home.
yes, yes.
I've been binge watching on YouTube the Japanese videos on sashimi and how they slice up a large tuna
Oh my,
or
yes.
puffer fish.
Yes,
It will go on. You
exactly.
know how it is on YouTube. You play one video and it will just continue playing
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
similar
yeah, yeah.
subject matter. And I would have it playing all night until I fall asleep,
Yeah.
just watching these sushi
Be-
masters slice up these
I love it.
large
I love it. It's
fishes.
like now. Yeah, exactly. It's like now I understand why Japanese rice is a little bit more delicious than every other rice. It's because they put some vinegar in there.
Vinegar, yeah.
Right? Yeah, you see, that I never knew that.
And
And then when I first saw that, when I first heard it, it's like, no wonder because there is a definitely different quality to Japanese rice than any other rice in the world. And there's that secret weapon that they have, whatever kind of vinegar that is.
the
So
taste and also it
yeah,
helps in I think in the consistency, the stickiness of the
the
rice.
stickiness, yes,
That's why
exactly,
it
yeah,
holds together and stuff like that.
yeah. So now, so it's like when I was in college, and then when you eat sushi, and I remember high school, college days, sushi was still new in the Philippines. 1987, 86, 88, that the late 80s. And you just eat as much as you can because it's delicious. Now, when I eat something like that, or any kind of food that I appreciate, I look at it differently now. It's like, okay, there's that vinegar in this rice that no one else probably knows but me or anyone who saw that program that I saw that I watched. So it's a deeper appreciation. And I guess same with film. If I watch Citizen Kane again with after hearing everything we've discussed about him or what you've discussed about him in the film, I now have a deeper understanding of going into it. It's like, to me, the black and white is already irrelevant. You know what I mean? Because it was made in 1940. Everything was black and white. No choice.
Right, yeah.
Diba?
I totally understand that. That's why, because I teach, and a lot of students are very young. They're barely in their 18s, and
Wow.
so I kind of try to, of course, understand it from their point of view. But I try to create a deeper explanation of why it's relevant. Without antagonizing them.
Yeah,
I try
exactly.
to put myself in their shoes, and they were born with the internet already around,
Yeah.
and home video and cable TV and all that, and then they saw it develop into streaming and so on, and they're now kind of suffering and languishing and surviving under this pandemic, and I know how difficult it is. So yeah,
Wow.
schooling has been very difficult, but it continues on through online, synchronous classes, and it's also difficult for teachers like me to impart that.
What
I do my best to try and open their minds to these ideas, and still understand if they're not totally appreciating it. I can understand that, but at least once you've imparted it, they start thinking. At least it is in the back of their mind already, and they start thinking about it next time they see an old film, a classic film. And not only silent cinema, even watching The Godfather now. The
Yeah, that's
young
old,
kids,
man. That's classic already.
it's so dated to them, right?
Yeah.
But to me, that's part of what was called modern cinema. That
Yeah.
was modern Hollywood in the 70s. The
Yeah.
maverick directors like Scorsese and all
Coppola.
those they're just along with Coppola and George Lucas
Spielberg.
and Spielberg, of course.
Yeah, grabe. No, that's
they
why.
were
That's
reinventing Hollywood. So
see. That's the point of the why. Then when you know more about the why and the how, then you appreciate these people more. When you say their names, you're just not name dropping. You're seriously saying Coppola, Spielberg, Scorsese. These people they're in the culture. They're pillars in American and even world culture. I would say world culture because their films transcend. All you need is subtitles for a different language, and people be like, "These are great movies, man." So when it transcends, just like rock and roll music, that is good quality music that transcends. The whole world listens to American music. It's in English, man. you know,
right, right.
people in Denmark who don't, English in Europe. English is their second language. It's not their first language, no. So they have to exert a little more effort to listen to American music. But Phil Collins is super famous in France. Yeah, what? Susudio is really popular in France. It doesn't matter. And I think in cinema as well, it's the same thing. If it's a good film, like I remember when I saw. Let's talk about actual films now. I want to nerd out. When I saw City of God, the Brazilian film, you remember that?
Yeah.
Dude, that was and the time that it came out. See, it's all about the time. When
Early
you
2000s also, I think.
early 2000 or late 90s, early 2000s, or
1999, maybe
yeah, maybe
year
2000 or 2001.
99, yeah.
But it was almost a documentary in how real it was, you know and it was great. And I only saw it on DVD because they never showed it in the theater in the Philippines because it's an international film. They wouldn't bother. So stuff like that, I and then another thing I wanted to point out, that new movie of Soderbergh, No Sudden Move, the one that I saw last night. The camera that he used was an old camera because it was set in the 1950s. That's the setting of the movie. So his camera, on the edges, it starts to blur. Not blur but distort. So I don't know. I'm not. I forgot, because
I've only barely come across the article on that. I need to look it up. So I look forward to seeing that film. Yeah.
Yeah, if you get a chance to see it, it's called what's it called? Here, it's right here. It's on
And
IMDb.
Soderbergh does his own camera. Actually, he's the cinematographer. I believe
Oh,
in this
really?
he was the cinematographer.
Dude, he was
He
well,
shot
great,
several
man.
of his films. He was
Well, it was awesome. Anyway, he's really good then, because the opening scene is just him following Don Cheadle, and John Cheadle is walking down the street, and then they go into. I won't spoil it for you, but it's great. He just follows the guy until the conversation happens, the first conversation of the film, and we're like, wow, that's cool, man. That shot was so cool, man. And then and then, like I said, that the camera is that the edges are not just blurred but are already distorting. It's already bending. You know what I mean? So if ever you look up that article, that's what it is. And
look at that.
yeah, man. I'm glad. I'm really happy that guys like Soderbergh and then Steven Spielberg directed a new version of West Side Story. It's coming out in August, I think. Oh no, it's coming out in December. It's probably for Christmas. And it's like you're so excited because like that's a classic film, which was already great to begin with. The cinematography, the choreography is great, and now it's Steven Spielberg doing it. Like you can just imagine. It's like wow, pare.
Of course, Spielberg is a true veteran already.
Yeah.
Contemporary of Coppola and Scorsese and so on. But it's amazing. You really feel old when these generation of supposedly new filmmakers who were reinventing Hollywood also in the 90s. Like Tarantino and Soderbergh.
Yeah.
Or maybe even include Christopher Nolan now.
And also one
Purist
director I'm a big fan of is Wes Anderson. Oh my God.
Wes Anderson, but imagine they're old now.
Yeah.
They began in the 90s,
Yeah.
Soderbergh in the late 80s, I think 89 or so. It's just interesting because there are now a lot of new young filmmakers, and of course, like my young students, they would be more familiar with their generation, and
Right.
refer to a lot of these new films or new directors that are being discovered on Netflix and stuff like that, and that's great. I'm all for that. But it's always good to look back into the early films of these.
Oh no, you have to look at the
directors. Like I'm talking of this generation. Like you said, Wes Anderson, Chris Nolan, Tarantino, Soderbergh, and they were inspired by the directors from the 70s to 80s.
Yeah. You have to know the roots.
Ridley Scott, even mainstream, very commercial cinema. And,
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Ridley Scott, of course, because of Alien and Blade Runner's early films. And in turn, these filmmakers, as we've said earlier, were of course influenced, and they themselves admit, and that gives you the reason why the older films are still significant, because
Yes.
it's good to look back. We're not saying, hey, young kids, make films like those filmmakers, or make films like Godfather.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there's value in looking back.
Yes.
These are the roots, and you can learn why
These are the roots.
these filmmakers you now idolize. Like Tarantino is still a big favorite for a lot of young kids. Because Tarantino's brand is anything goes. He's
Yeah.
lucky, actually. He's a very lucky filmmaker. I mean, a lot of critics have mixed feelings about it. Some critics would be very harsh and say he's not talented at all. But basically, he's lucky because his brand is anything goes, meaning the Tarantino
Yeah.
brand is it has to be his way, or it's not a Tarantino film. And
Yeah.
he found producers who believed in that brand
Yes.
that they have to
And
let him loose, because otherwise it's not a Tarantino film.
yes,
And
yes,
that's great.
exactly.
I
Exactly.
envy him.
Yeah.
To find producers who think, hey, Raymond should do it his way, and that's what a Raymond Red film is. And that's the
Yes.
struggle of every filmmaker to find backers, financiers who will believe in what you're doing.
Exactly.
I guess that's why I've remained an independent filmmaker all these years. A lot of the movie industry in the Philippines know me. I'm known in circles, but technically, I've never been a mainstream
You're still an
filmmaker. I've never
outsider.
been produced by mainstream producers.
Yeah.
All my films have been produced through independent means, independent
Yeah.
support, funding, and even the
It's
making of the approach.
it's ironic that the the that the most independent director, or one of the most, or one of the original independent directors in the Philippines, has been invited and awarded and recognized by people outside of his country. It's just weird. I mean, it's kind of a Filipino thing that underground artists get recognized outside rather
Right.
than in their own thing, because the people there, they don't understand where these alternative thinking people are coming from, because they don't
Yeah, I
because
don't
these people
deny.
don't care about the why. They just want the finished product, and I mean,
And I don't deny I use that to my advantage, of course, because of the recognition. You use that, winning in Cannes, and I always tell my students, but the Palme d'Or in Cannes does not define who I am.
mhm.
I was me. I was Raymond Red, the independent filmmaker since back in the 80s.
Yes, yes,
And that is what defines me. But I admit, it helps my career. The focus, the attention, the recognition will help, and you can use that. But I always say that it's never the main goal. It's not. It shouldn't be your goal to win awards and so on.
yes,
But
yes.
it's
Of
a
course.
great bonus that it will help you move on and climb up the
Yeah,
ladder, because certain people recognize that and even put you up on a pedestal because of those
yeah,
awards,
yeah.
which in a way is wrong, but it helps. So I don't deny I appreciate that. But the
It's
thing is, you have to focus on the cinema. You believe in the cinema, and I guess that's why I've remained independent. It's not like I'm saying I don't want to work in the commercial mainstream. I always wished the big film
yeah,
producers, in the Philippines, you have for a long time Mother Lily, Regal Films,
yeah. Exactly.
you have
Yeah.
Star Cinema, and GMA
Sampaguita
Films,
Films.
and so all these big studios, Viva Films, who are still the bigger companies
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now.
Uh-huh.
Now we have new companies like Globe Studios,
Mm.
and so I've always wished that companies like this could support my kind of cinema, but I'm very specific. You see, I only
Yeah.
do the films I really want to do, and they're all my own concepts, and maybe a lot of financiers find them difficult to produce. The difficult material or sensitive material or radical or whatever.
Oh, radical. Yeah, they don't like that
However
stuff.
they see it. But it's not that I don't like the mainstream, but I wish the kind of films I make can be made mainstream.
Yeah.
And that's why I say somebody like Tarantino is lucky, because they found this brand of filmmaking palatable and marketable and saleable, and that's why
Yeah.
they backed him. And then every independent filmmaker kind of dreams of that,
Yeah.
finding the patron and
Yeah.
somebody who
Of course,
who cares.
it's always like
So
that, and
I'm still struggling. I always say I'm still a struggling filmmaker, but I
right.
don't say that in a negative sense.
Yes.
I struggle with pride. I
With pride.
struggle to do only the films I really want to do. But on the other side of that, I'm very proud of my son. You know, you've heard of my son, Mikhail,
Oh yes, yes, yes.
Mikhail
Your
Red.
son.
He's
Wow.
more popular now. I've got
Yeah.
a lot of
He came out of nowhere, man.
when he was starting, people would refer
What's his
to
name
him
again?
as, "Oh,
Mikhail, right? Mikhail
he's the
Red.
son of Raymond Red." You know,
Mikhail
that's
Red,
how
right?
he was referred to. But now, when people meet me, they say, "Oh, he's the father of Mikhail Red." That's how they will when I'm being introduced, and they say, "Oh, okay." So now they recognize me because I'm the father of
The father
Mikhail.
became.
I'm proud of that.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
it's
great.
it's turned around now. So it's a next generation, and it's amazing. The generation of Mick, you know, Mikhail, they started with short films just like me, and went into these independent film festivals, and then went from there to international festival and so on. It's very similar to the route I took, but at the same time, there's more recognition now commercially and from the mainstream of these new generation of filmmakers, and so they have more opportunities, and that's why Mikael is now working mainstream. It's really fully
Mm.
mainstream. His films have been produced by Star Cinema, Globe Studios. Uh, he's now working on an HBO Asia project,
Wow.
so he's very mainstream.
What
He's very
are
mainstream in that sense.
how old is he?
Well, he's not that young now. He's 29, but
Oh,
he
that
started quite young. You
well
know, he
for
started with his short
for
films in his
eh,
teens, and so he's worked his way up the ladder. You know, he's really worked hard, but he got a lot of good opportunities in the last decade. At
mm.
least in the last 5 or 6 years, it's made really
what
big strides. You know.
what are the films I should check out from your kid?
Well, like he was
And
actually
when I say me, I mean everybody who's listening.
well, he was in fact the first Filipino film to be officially a Netflix original.
Oh, which one?
You know, I believe it was Dead Kids, but his film Birdshot, an earlier film,
Hmm.
uh, which I
Oh,
think
I heard
was
about
just a
Birdshot.
second
I heard
feature.
about that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's an award-winning film, and
I probably
it
I
was in
probably saw it.
the it was submitted by the Philippines for Oscars consideration back in that
Oh,
I forget
right,
the
right.
exact
Yeah,
year
yes,
now.
yes, yes.
Is it
Yeah,
2017 or so? I forget the exact
I
year now.
remember that. Yeah, I
But
remember
yeah,
that.
it's a very successful film, and then it went on to Netflix. Now, during that time, it was still quite rare to see Filipino films in Netflix. They hadn't really expanded that much in Asian cinema. They had a lot of
Yep,
Korean, Japanese films.
yep.
And so it was a very rare opportunity to have a Filipino film on Netflix. Now it's exploded. It's very commercial. They buying whatever they can buy.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then of course they categorize them and they limit certain content. You know, like a lot of the Filipino films are actually available only in the Philippines or in Asia. So they're only very choice films. So if you're able to
Mm-hmm.
watch the Filipino film there in the States from your account,
Right.
and that's quite a special film because that means
Ah,
Netflix put it in the international platform.
yeah.
Whereas other films there are hundreds already of Filipino films, but they're only available either in Asia or sometimes even just in the Philippines.
Wow.
So Mika made those strides quite early on. And it's quite an achievement. I never achieved anything like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's why my films have remained alternative. They're never commercial.
You're the punk
Uh,
rock daddy that punk rock dad.
the Anyway, I hope and I will bow down to streaming eventually. I'll probably that's
Yeah.
why I'm remastering my films,
No, that's
putting
what.
them
Yes, of course. Yeah,
to
yeah, 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 yeah.
restore, revive them, and
Mm-hmm.
I probably will eventually put them on my own platform. I have a website, raymondred.com. It's very simple at the moment, but if I have more funds, I might expand that website into a streaming platform of specifically my films.
That would be
So
great.
at least it's a niche market. I mean, if you don't like me, then don't go to my website.
Well,
If
that's the
you're
world.
curious about my films, then people will then go there. So it becomes a really niche audience because
Yeah,
they're actually out there seeking
yeah.
for my films. So
Exactly,
they go to my
exactly.
website and then probably watch
Yeah.
my films.
Speaking of that, I mean, like now it's it for a time being. there was this on YouTube. There are people who review things about anything, reaction videos. That's what they call them.
Right, right.
And I'm sure you heard about this. There were these two Scandinavian guys. I think they're Norwegian or basta, they're Nordic. They're two Nordic dudes, and They reviewed Halik ni Judas. They reviewed a Greyhound song, and I think a Slapshot song that I know of, and probably some other Filipino rock songs. And that's my point. You never know. These songs are old. These are from 1995. Halik ni Judas is from 95. And in 2019, these two guys from, a Nordic country discovered that song because it was on the internet. If it wasn't on the internet, if it was, just in the Philippines, they would have never discovered it. They would have never said that. Oh, because the first things that they say is like, "Oh, I didn't know that there was rock music in the Philippines." That's the first thing that they say. So for them, it's already an opener. They become more interested, like, "Ooh, rock music in the Philippines. That sounds interesting." And for Westerners, that's very easy. It's a very easy, like, it's easy for them to get nerdy about that because they have, they live in first world countries. They have the, the means and the ways, whatever, to appreciate it. And it would be the same thing. Like a Filipino would have to be, more in I wouldn't say classy, but have some not really good taste, but expansive taste, that you appreciate Indian classical music as well as Metallica, which is me. But of course, that didn't happen overnight. I had to discover all these kinds of music and connect everything and say, and then finally, like and then listen to Miles Davis and appreciate that, and then finally appreciating Ravi Shankar and all of that. And I think with cinema, it's the same thing, because then it's like, now I will have an appreciation for Citizen Kane, which I never did. I'm like, I'm not going to watch that thing, black and white, boring, whatever. Now I'm not going to have that mindset anymore. So
yeah, try to watch that newsreel, the things I described.
Yeah.
Every shot, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the shots were found footage or existing news footage, but some were recreated by Orson Welles, and they had to age the shots accordingly. So imagine to think of that, the technical aspect of aging the look of the film.
Is there a specific era that movie is set in? Specifically in the movie, or just general?
Because it's a long story. It tells the story of Charles Foster Kane.
Yeah,
It started
what year does
from
it
his
start?
childhood, which is, I forget now.
The
Was it in
tens?
the 1910s or so? Something like that. 1900s.
Yeah.
Early 1900s.
Yeah.
Because it starts
okay.
with his childhood, and it shows how
Right.
he was adopted and
Okay.
moved up and inherited money and became
and the film's
tycoon
and the film's present era is what, 1940?
in the 40s, yeah.
Okay, right. Okay, I get it now.
Or at least because it was released in 41, like the late 1930s, I guess.
Okay.
39 or 40.
So
in that newsreel footage, you even see a fake recreation, of course, of Charles Foster Kane meeting up with Hitler when the Nazis
really?
were already on the rise, of course, in the 30s.
Wow.
But just before World War II, see, because this
my
movie
God.
was finished in 1941, released in 41. Just before America got into World War II. So I find it interesting, even though the film doesn't really tackle World War II.
Yeah.
It gives you a different perspective of what was happening then and how this character is placed on
you know what I think? You know what I think it is? I think because if that was made when? When did it come out? 1940?
41, yeah.
41. So it would have been made in 1940, a year before, maybe. I'm assuming like that, right? Well, World War II had started already. World War II started
Well,
1939.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
The Nazi forces were invading already.
Yeah. So
So Soviet.
but then before the war started, I'm sure everybody knew already about Hitler. Everybody's probably
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
"Oh, this guy's bad news."
He was already on the rise.
Yeah.
That's why it was part of the film.
Yeah.
Nazis were already
Wow.
invading
No, but
Poland.
even before the invasion of Poland, everybody in the world was probably hearing about Hitler already. That there's this
Right. Yeah.
crazy guy who wants to start wars and stuff, so he probably took
So
that
even
cue
if
from
that
him.
was just a snippet in there,
Okay.
it gives you a different perspective, really, of the political scene at the
Okay.
time where this character is placed. And at the same time, makes you imagine now, me as a filmmaker, start imagining how Orson Welles was probably thinking during that
Oh
time
gosh. Can you
when he
just
was
imagine
putting this
that?
together,
Can you
things like
imagine
this.
that? He was probably a pot smoker, man. I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised if he smoked pot.
He was
Because I mean
quite
that's
young,
that's the
25. So
1930s. The
he
I
was
mean
in the school.
marijuana was still legal in the 1930s. Yeah. So anyway, um, so let's get back to movies to wrap this thing up. Okay, let's just compare notes, excluding since we've been talking about the two films a lot, excluding The Godfather and Citizen Kane. What would be your favorite movies? I don't like to really say what are your top five, but give me five of your
It's
favorite
always
movies.
difficult, yeah, to make a
Yeah,
list.
I know. That's why no top, no number, whatever. But your five
But
favorite movies aside
admittedly,
from the two,
yeah,
or
admittedly,
I'm not even sure that The Godfather and Citizen Kane is on the list. I'm not. I don't know.
they are definitely.
Okay.
So, I mean, admittedly, a lot of us, in the Philippines, grew up with American cinema,
Hmm.
and in fact, it was kind of rare to see European cinema. I'm not saying it wasn't being shown, but it was a little bit rarer to see European, much less Asian cinema, Asian international cinema. We were not so exposed to it, of course, except probably for Chinese kung fu films.
Yeah.
But it was mostly American cinema, of course, that we were seeing in theaters, and then we would see reruns on TV. So definitely, I was highly influenced by that, and that's why Francis Ford Coppola became one of my favorite directors. Of course, even at an early age, I tried to watch everything, Apocalypse Now, and then
Yeah.
later on, when home video became more accessible, like I told you, when I was starting in the 80s, even a copy of Citizen Kane was very, very rare, or even this one of my favorite films,
Oh
2000,
yeah, 2001 Space Odyssey.
or
Yes.
1968.
Uh-huh.
That was very, very difficult to find. I mean, you would ask relatives from the US to probably try and record it off. I don't know. There was already
HBO.
DVD or
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it was an effort, really. But yeah, a lot of American cinema, and so these films eventually influenced me. But in the 70s, it's whatever you saw on the big screen
Yeah.
or reruns on TV influenced you. I was highly influenced by a lot of B movies and sci-fi movies. There were reruns on TV
Right. Yeah.
in the
Uh-huh.
70s. These cheap black and white movies, and Roger Corman produced films.
Yeah.
And
We.
Coppola himself was involved
Oh
and in fact,
wow.
I'm binge watching now. I kind of got tired of Netflix of serious films, so I'm now watching all these B movies, horror movies, even
Yeah.
Vincent Price movies. Watching it on YouTube,
Yeah.
they're free, so you can watch all of this now again. Some I've seen before, as reruns, as I said, as a kid, and some I've only seen only now. It's
Yeah.
it's amusing for me just
What are
seeing these really cheaply made science fiction alien monster movies. So,
how about okay, here's a good
but
query.
I guess I might as well mention it because I mentioned earlier. But
Uh-huh.
early on, I was starting to get influenced by Filipino filmmakers. Of course,
Mm.
I wasn't really watching Lino Broca's films in the 70s when they were being released. I wasn't into it. A lot of
Yeah.
Manila born kids would be into American films. And like
Yeah,
I
of
said,
course. Yeah.
in '77, I thought Star Wars was the greatest movie ever made.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Until I saw these classic films. But then I started watching them in the '80s, and that's why one of my favorites and one of the more influential directors to me was Mike De Leon.
Mm,
And well, my favorite of his was Kisap Mata, in Blink of an Eye,
yeah.
in English, which has recently been remastered. I'm not sure where they're going to release that, but it's been remastered, I believe, in 4K resolution. And
Oh my gosh.
cinematography was great, and in a way, I consider Mike De Leon and the cinematographer of that. One of my idols, really, Roddy Lockup.
Roddy Lockup.
I consider them mentors because I met them. I was so lucky to meet them very early on in the '80s when I was just starting out with Super 8 film. And I remember I even did a private screening for Mike De Leon of some of my Super 8 so that he could appreciate it. And I kind of trained a little bit in their studio. Mike De Leon comes from the De Leon family.
Oh, okay,
It
right.
owns LVN Pictures, LVN
Uh-huh.
Studios.
Yeah.
So they have a lab, they have the studio. So in the early '80s, I was kind of apprenticing there.
Mm.
And yeah, so I learned a lot from Roddy Lockup in cinematography and Mike De Leon,
What
who also does cinematography himself.
what year did that film come out?
Well, Kisab Mata was '81, or maybe made in '81, released in '82, if I remember right now.
Yeah.
So I did see it in its initial screening. Then because I was
Wow.
becoming aware of cinema and becoming interested in as a student, I started watching in retrospect already Lino Broca films, which were
Mm.
mostly released in this mid '70s. When Lino had films like Insiang or Maynila sa mga kuko ng liwanag na
Oh yeah,
Mandaluyong
that one. Oh my god.
in
The
in
title
Close
the title itself. The title itself is so deep.
of
It's
Dawn.
like
So they were the first films that were showing in the director's fortnight of Cannes, and then of course there's Ishmael Bernal,
yeah, Peke
um,
Galiaga.
who had the Manila by Night, and then eventually had the Himala, Miracle with Nora Honor that went to Berlin
Mm.
Film Festival, I believe.
Yeah.
Then yes, Peke Galiaga. Even Peke Galiaga, I kind of look up to as a kind of Orson Welles, because to be
Yes.
honest, my only real favorite film of his is Oro Plata Mata, which is
Oro
his first film.
Platamat. Yep.
It really influenced me. I mean, I'm not saying he didn't do other powerful films much later on, but they were not as powerful for me,
Right.
for my taste. But he made, yeah, a lot of highly regarded films. But to me, it was Oro Plata. It sealed his position in the legacy of Philippine cinema,
Yeah.
just by that
Definitely.
one film.
Yeah.
So it kind of like Orson Welles. I mean, a lot of critics say after Citizen Kane, it was downhill from then on
Yeah.
for Orson Welles. I mean, maybe there's some truth to that, but
Yeah.
maybe it's unfair because he did do some really memorable, powerful films also after. But there was a kind of truth in that saying,
Mm-hmm.
because he couldn't
Couldn't match it.
equal anymore. He
Yeah.
couldn't match the
He already did
power
it. It's
and
like
the
it's like
iconic
yeah,
position of
it's like
person.
my how I view um funk music, black music, which is funk soul, but specifically funky music. And it's James Brown. He's the one who invented the funky
Yeah.
music, and already the bar is already at the top. So like you said, it's all downhill. Everything that is funky after James Brown cannot equal that because James Brown is already the pinnacle of that. That's the bar, and he's the best at it anyway. So you can't beat James Brown anymore.
Right, right.
It's the bar is there anymore. It's not like when
It's
rock and
emulated and
yeah, he's the one. He's the main guy. It's not like rock and roll had to develop from the blues merging with country music, and then Elvis and Chuck Berry and Little Richard and them had to record that kind of music first, and then that first wave of rock and roll people, they all disappeared by 1959. Wala na sila. They were gone in 4 years. So who came back? Who for a time being, it was all these crooners, Frankie Valli, put your head on my shoulders, Baduy music, and then a few years later, the Beatles and the Stones come out, and these are the bands who were influenced by the blues guys and the rock and roll guys before them. So it had to develop. Rock music had to develop. And then after the Beatles, there was Jimi Hendrix. And after Hendrix, there was Led Zeppelin. After Led Zeppelin, there was Van Halen. So it develops. Whereas with funk music and James Brown, it's already invented and developed and patented, and that's it. That's the best funk music in the world. Anything else is not, it's good, but not as equal to James Brown. That's how I'm understanding what you're saying. You have to put it in music terms,
That's how many critics, international critics, saw Citizen Kane.
Wow. That early pa lang, 1940 pa lang. That's it.
Of course, there are a lot of changing views, so new generations,
of course,
have their own opinions. In fact, there's an annual, not really yearly, I think. Many institutions do this. They to come up with the best 100 films ever, which is kind of difficult, really, because as I said,
that's hard.
It really all
Man.
depends on taste and perspective.
That's hard.
And especially if you're talking about the whole world. I mean, you'll have to have a really wide view of the breadth of international cinema. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
So you have to votes from critics and directors. And I was once in a poll. I was invited to put my vote.
Oh, really?
That before.
It's like if I was going to make a list like that, especially if it's of the world, there has to be that Lino Broca film, Manila sa Kuko ng Dilim or whatever. That has to be there. That film, at the very least, has to be there. And maybe and also
by international critics, of course.
Yeah.
So it's really voted in some international lists of the best films ever made.
I believe it, man.
Lino is the only one that usually makes it. I mean, as a Filipino.
So going back,
I was saying, Citizen Kane always topped majority of critics
of the critics
for so many
polls.
Years.
Yeah.
Until recently, when I guess there are more, there will be younger film critics now or established.
So what movies are they picking nowadays?
So picking, let's say, 3 or 4 decades ago. So Citizen Kane started to kind of go down in the ranking amongst these, and it's so a natural course of what's happening.
So what's replacing Citizen Kane?
Well, other classic films. There was, of course, there's so many lists.
Yeah.
But, some of the
major Gone with the Wind pa. Oh my God.
One of the major lists, of course, they come up with that in Hollywood, I'm sure, in the AMPAS, American Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. But the one I participated in was by the British Film Institute, of course, very reputable. In collaboration with Sight and Sound magazine, which is a major film magazine.
Right.
Published by the British Film Institute. Some 15 years ago or so, I was invited to contribute. And then again in their next round, I think some 6 years ago or so. The list was suddenly changing. For so many decades, it was always Citizen Kane on top. So there was a time when I think Vertigo of Hitchcock overtook Citizen Kane. And then there was a year, Tokyo Story, the Japanese film, overtook the top placing. So it's kind of shifting. So it's still kind of leaning towards classic films, of course, because you're looking at really a breadth of critics, cinema, from all these countries that were involved in making films, of course. So it's really always difficult to make a list. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not absolute. They're not written on stone, of course. But just to see Citizen Kane for so many decades, that's an amazing achievement. I mean, it really proves that the
Yeah.
film,
Stands the test of time.
yeah, you know, it deserves its position there. I'm not saying
Yeah.
it is the best,
Right. Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
it will always be there. It will always be studied. It will always be referred to.
Yeah.
It's a staple for film
Yeah.
students. Of course, a
It will
lot of
be.
all
Yeah.
film schools will require you to see that,
Exact. Yeah.
whether you
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it or not.
Yes. It's like it's a rite of passage already. It's like going back to music. It's like when you have a young person and you see their potential and you see that they like rock music, they like cool music, they like funky black music or whatever, and then you have to stop them in their tracks. It's like, okay, that's cool and all, but you got to hear Hendrix first, you got to hear James Brown first before you listen to all of these people. You have to listen to those people first. You have to listen to Robert Johnson, you have to listen to Muddy Waters, you have to listen to the Beatles, the people before, and then you decide what you want to do after, and
Exactly. Yeah.
because that's it. It's prerequisite. In other words, it's like, and in cinema, it's the same thing. Orson Welles, Coppola, Scorsese. I'm just naming the people who are on the surface. I'm sure, there are other directors there that I'm not even mentioning
For
here.
European directors,
Yeah, European directors. Yeah.
Bertolucci and
So
Francois
let me.
Truffaut and all that. But the Hollywood directors always come on top because they
Of
were
course,
popular.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So let me ask you this, so that it's not in a list form, and it would be much more personal. And I'll make an example of myself. What is a movie or movies, doesn't have to be a lot, that you would? It doesn't have to be a deep movie, whatever movie it is. But when it comes on TV, it comes on by accident. You have to watch it because it's like it is parang indirectly your favorite movies. Indirectly, subconsciously. For me, it would be Die Hard. That's how shallow I am. Die Hard, man. I love that movie. Every time Die Hard comes out on TV and I'm not doing anything else, I'm going to watch it till the end. I know every line in that movie and I'll recite the whole movie while I'm watching it. So in with you, what would that be?
Well, I've always expressed my obsession for Blade Runner.
Oh
Blade Runner,
shit.
to me, it's a classic. It influenced me. It changed me as a person. It
Really?
changed my philosophy of life because it's about life. It's about existence. The antagonist there, Roy Batty,
Mm-hmm.
the replicant, the android. He left a very potent message for me.
Yeah.
In that movie, and it's really how to view life and how to love life and existence. So it's almost becoming existential in '82. When I stepped out of the theater watching that movie, I was a changed man. I was a different
Wow.
person, not only as a filmmaker but as a person. It changed my belief in life and existence, and it was just amazing. So it changed me. I mean, some people, even younger generation might look at Blade Runner and say, "Oh, it's nothing special about it."
Yeah.
But that's how I viewed it back then. And of course, it has changed because Ridley Scott released different versions of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They had a
He did
remake.
a director's cut until now.
Oh no,
He's
and they made another one. They made a modern
2
one.
years. The final cut. They called it the final cut, the remastered version. But essentially changing the essence of the story, even
Mhm.
though he didn't change much in the film itself. Just by changing the ending, he changed the story. And for me, I didn't
No,
like that. And of
you know
course,
what?
some people think of me weird. Who are you to say
You know,
when the director himself was already saying this should be the way.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
the 1982 version is his version as well. That was his version. He decided to release that version.
yeah,
He was under some pressure maybe from producers in changing his edit and so on. But
hmm
that was the original version that created the cult.
Yeah.
The cult for that film.
Yeah.
And so you cannot erase that anymore. So even if we changed it now with the director's cut and final cut, to me, that's the iconic film, the
Exactly. Yeah.
1982 version. So it's just like you. I've memorized that film. I can recite the dialogue from beginning to end of that entire movie.
Wow.
That's how obsessed I must have seen it over 100 times. Maybe
So
two.
if it comes out on TV by accident, you're gonna sit down and watch it.
I still watch it. I have the
Yeah.
Blu-ray. Even though I have the Blu-ray, I can watch it anytime I want.
Anytime you
And
want.
I have
Yeah.
the first 5 versions of that.
Oh my God.
And then it's available on streaming if you want it.
Yeah.
You can rent it online.
I'm
And
gonna
yet,
watch it.
when it comes on cable, very few people have retained cable here since streaming became popular. I still have cable TV. Whenever I see it, just like The Godfather, no matter how many times I've seen it, when I see it on cable, I get excited and sit down and watch it.
Yes,
And I think
exactly.
it brings us back to what we were saying earlier about the experience of cinema. I think
Yes.
that's the excitement about it, because you like the film, and it's the excitement that it's running. On
Yeah.
cable, you
On
cannot
cable.
pause it.
Yeah. Yes,
It's
exactly.
in
It's on
reality,
Yes.
that's my statement. It's like life. You cannot
Yes.
stop or rewind it. And so when you see it on cable, I still get so excited and sit down and really pay
Yeah.
attention and watch it. Because then you experience it in the next 2 hours or so.
Yes.
You know,
Exactly. And when it comes out on cable here, there are commercials, dude. So I have to
right,
sit
right.
through I have to sit through the commercials, or it's
Not
it's
too bad.
a piss break or a snack break. But I'll sit down. I'll finish that movie until the credits of Die
Right.
Hards.
So that's well, going just to add, going back, because you were asking me what other films.
Yes.
Uh, I also like the films of Jim Jarmusch, especially his earlier films. He's an American independent filmmaker, so maybe he's not as famous, but he's made some part independent, part mainstream films a little later on. He's
Uh-huh.
still making some films, but a lot of his films, of course, are heard of mostly in film festivals. But I like his earlier films in the 80s. He has this one film called Down by Law. So if you ever come across that, it has a cult following.
Bound by Law.
Down by Law. In the 90s, he made some, let's say, slightly more commercial. Dead Man. The title is Dead Man with I'm having a mental block now.
Yeah, it's okay.
These were the more commercially released
Hmm.
films. With Johnny Depp. Sorry, that's what.
Yeah.
With Johnny Depp
Okay.
in the lead role, and so you could say it's a more commercial film, and yet a lot of people don't know about it. But Dead Man was the more kind of commercial, and he did a
Dead
lot more in the
Dead
2000s.
Man. That's the one with Johnny Depp. Dead Man.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll
But
check
my
that out.
favorite of his early films. He was an
Bound
American
by
independent.
Bound by Law.
So he kind of inspired me because he's an independent working against the system, working against
Mm.
Hollywood and commercialism and so on. But he's trying to make small films. And Down by Law was one of my favorites. With the young Roberto Benigni. Roberto
Oh,
Benigni,
yeah, of course. I know Roberto Benigni. Yeah.
famous with what's his Oscar-winning film? We're really getting old.
Yeah.
What's that? Sorry. You should edit this out.
Dude, I forget, man. No, it's okay.
About life. Yeah. So, it's interesting to see those early films.
Yeah, man. Are you a
They're
fan?
independent films.
Do you like the superhero films? The
Uh,
Marvel, DC stuff?
Oh, of course, I watched everything. I enjoy a lot of the commercial films. I
Yeah.
know there's a lot of debate about that,
Uh-huh.
and like last year or a couple of years ago when when Scorsese made that statement that Marvel is not cinema.
Right? Yeah, man.
I exactly
I was kind
know
of
this.
turned off by
I mean,
that statement.
and that's problematic because he's using the word cinema with his
Mm-hmm.
own point of view and definition. So
Yeah.
there's no point in arguing really because those arguing with him have different definition of the word.
Yeah.
And see, that's what I said earlier as well. The
Yeah.
word cinema is all encompassing word, and you might define it in a different way.
Exactly.
And so it becomes problematic because he wasn't bashing Marvel. He's just trying to describe it, and that's the way he found
Yeah.
the best way he found to describe it. That it's not cinema because he was defining cinema in a very specific way. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
cinema
But
is
I
the
mean,
classic cinema,
yeah. Yeah.
classic storytelling, classic film language, and so. And Marvel is a different, totally different experience. That's why he was saying it's almost like a theme park ride.
Yeah. Well,
Where
it is.
watching the films itself is like
No, well, I mean, it really is. I mean, they don't. I mean, they're not denying it. They're not denying that it's a serious that they're serious movies. But they're seriously produced. They're produced like
right,
hell.
yeah,
Oh my God,
yeah,
So,
the
and I mean, the
craftsmanship.
art. The art is still there. The art of filmmaking, the art of acting is still there. Everything is still there. And the thing is that they bring in the people in the theater. So it is cinema. It is part of cinema. I mean,
Right, right.
it. I mean, it like again in terms of music, it would be, uh, I would say, Marvel and DC movies would be like the Bee Gees.
Hmm.
They're not exactly, they're not Badui, but they're also not that deep. It's very surface. It's very easy to digest. It's easy to dance to. You know what I mean. Whereas
Right.
The Godfather is more like you have to learn how to dance the waltz. The Godfather is like the waltz. You have to learn how to dance the waltz, or you have to learn how to dance samba. You have to learn how to do it. Whereas DC Marvel, you just take it in, man. You just enjoy the ride. Yeah, it's an amusement park ride. He was right about that. So,
Right,
but
right.
the thing that turned me off about that statement was, I think, it's always the way you say it. It's always
Right.
the way it comes out, especially Scorsese, man. I mean, you don't have to say something like that. You're
Yeah.
Scorsese. You don't need to say something that cheap. It sounded like a cheap shot to me.
Yeah, that's why it was taken in the wrong context.
Yeah, it was
And
saying,
he
yeah,
should have known that. He should have known that it will be taken in the wrong context.
yeah,
And that's why he
because
was trying to defend it later on.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But that's the thing. Before you say something like that, there has to be real purpose and motivation for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so people would easily accuse him, no, your motivation was to insult.
Yes, exactly,
So
exactly.
that's wrong in a sense. But at the same time, I understood what he was trying to say.
No, I definitely
Kind of
understood
like,
what he was saying. Yeah.
I love watching Marvel movies, but let's admit it. The way these movies are made, even though there's a director and a lot of us might credit, oh, he's a great director,
Yeah.
well made movie and so on,
Hmm.
well crafted. It's really a collaborative movie, like really a factory assembly line movie.
Yes,
Not to
exactly.
say that's wrong, but the point is that's the manner it's made.
Hmm.
They really precisely look at everything, the visual effects. They even do reshoots if they feel this won't
Yeah.
work.
Hmm.
That's how these movies are made. And knowing Scorsese, he cannot make a movie that way because he does it, of course, with a script, but he's more organic and he has full control, creative control, and stuff like that. So he cannot do it, and so he sits in a position where I think Coppola was the one who said this in a interview even way back. That in a world that's really becoming, moving towards democracy, becoming more democratic now in the whole world. Maybe the director position is the only last uh, dictatorial positions
Yes,
that may be
exactly.
left. But he's talking of a very specific kind of position, like
Mm.
Coppola did movies like Apocalypse Now with
Yeah.
total full control. He even kicked out his co-producers, or I mean, they left. I
Yeah.
think of Paramount or 20th Century, they left, and I said, what the hell? I'm gonna produce this film, and he finished it through Zoetrope Studios. He finished it. He lost a lot of money, but eventually, of course, he got it back.
Yeah,
It's
got it
a
back.
Netflix
Yeah.
movie. And that's a different type of filmmaking. So I guess that's what Scorsese was saying, because that's how he makes his movies. The financiers he who favors him
Yes.
still believe in the dictatorial position of a director.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what the Scorsese movie is. He will
Yeah.
decide on what he wants and everything. Not to say that he's not collaborating. Of course, we have to give credit to the collaborations with designers, cinematographers, and all that. But
Mm-hmm.
he's still there, like Orson Welles was back in the classic Hollywood productions, where he wants to sit as the director, the author, the auteur theory, which they
Right.
always argue about. The French word auteur,
Yeah, the
meaning
auteur.
the author, that the director is the author, and a lot of
Mhm.
people argue about that. No, cinema is collaborative. You're putting too little credit to all the other people who work, the actors and so on.
Yeah.
But I don't want to call myself an auteur, but maybe that's what I'm doing, because I only want to make movies where I will have full control.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Where I'm not saying I'm, and that's why I also do my own cinematography, so that's,
Yeah.
I wouldn't need to argue with a cinematographer on how to shoot it,
Yeah.
because I already
Exactly.
have a very clear vision of it.
Yeah.
I can't do everything, but I have a say in everything else. I mean,
Yeah.
design and so on.
I'm the same.
Editing and post production. I go through that. So
Yeah.
if that is what you call an auteur, then go ahead. But I don't like using that term.
Right.
But in
Yeah.
a way, I understood what Scorsese was saying,
Yeah.
but he said it in the wrong way, in the wrong
Yeah. He
manner.
said it in the wrong way. Yeah.
It really shows almost like a condescending,
Well,
attitude
he
towards
and
that type of stuff.
he comes nga from that older generation where they really take it seriously. I mean, really seriously. So he sounded like a grandpa. It's like, grandpa, come on, man. Cool out, man. Don't be too hostile. We're trying to do our own thing here. Of
Right.
course, there's that age gap. Of course. And like I said, I totally understood what he was saying, but I was turned off. It's like, why do you have to say it like that? It sounds like you're
Yeah, yeah.
putting it
And in fact,
down.
he didn't have to say it. I mean, it's
Yeah, he
amazing
didn't. Yeah, he didn't have to say it. I was
what he's
surprised that he did.
achieving now, in fact, because he's able now to cross over, bring
Mm-hmm.
his style of filmmaking, and yet work with the new companies like Netflix. Netflix is
Yeah,
backing his new film again, with The
yeah,
Irishman, and then this new film. I
yeah,
forget the title now, but he's doing another one
yeah,
with that approach. He's sitting there as an auteur.
yeah,
So he's lucky. He's amazing. But he doesn't. I guess he didn't have to say that,
yeah.
because
He didn't have to say
cinema
that.
is transforming, evolving, and changing.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying again the beginning of this interview. That I
Hmm.
try not to be condescending or
Right.
appear unknowing, when I talk about classic cinema to my students. I'm just
Yeah.
saying it's still significant. It's great that cinema is changing and moving, and you adapt to that and do your thing, right? But
Hmm.
it will be helpful to know its roots. That's basically what I'm trying to emphasize. Just knowing your roots, whether you like it or not. I'm not saying you have to like it. I'm not saying you're stupid if you don't like it. I'm just saying it's good to know it. You know, it's just like learning about your grandfather, even if you never met him. You know, even if you
Exactly.
dislike him, when you finally hear the
Exactly.
stories about what your grandfather or grandmother did when they were alive. But
Yeah.
it's great to know where you came from,
Of course.
how
Yes.
your family has evolved, and stuff like that. And you learn a lot from it, and that's why it's still significant. So I guess that's the lesson we take from that.
And that's the perfect way to end this, man. Perfect, dude. Thank you very much, Raymond Red, pride of the Philippines. Check his films out
Yep.
when he shows them. You can't see him online. You gotta go
I
to the
will. I will
theater
eventually.
eventually. But in
I,
the
ho- I, don't-
meantime,
I hope. I hope they don't call me grandpa.
no, no,
Like I
man.
said, I'm not against streaming. In fact, I know I
Yeah,
have to adapt to it, but it will take some time. Because I want to, prepare my films and
Of
eventually
course,
put it online.
of course. You're an artist. You're taking care of your art, so that's very commendable. But what you have done so far in your career is commendable and something to be very proud of. So thank you very much for being here, man. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah.
And please
So
do check out also my son's films.
oh yeah,
A lot of it
Mikhail Red,
just look for Mikhail Red.
Mikhail Red. Yeah,
He,
yeah,
by the way, he was actually named after Mikhail Gorbachev.
yeah. I had a feeling, man. Yeah,
When he was born in '91, Mikhail Gorbachev was the big name in the news, and then,
yeah.
with
He
Perestroika, and then the Soviet Union falling apart.
yeah. He ended the Cold War, man.
Yeah,
So
so he was a hero then,
yeah,
and Mikhail was named after him.
that's cool, man. All right, thank you, sir, very much. I'll see you soon.
Great. Stay
All right.
safe.
All right, you too, man. Good luck with the second jab.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Peace,
Bye,
man.
everyone. Yeah.
Take care.